This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, so item 1A, we're going to open up with the election proclamation for our last election, and it reads, whereas a general election was held in Port Orford, Curry County, Oregon on November 8th, 2022, and whereas registered voters in the city limits of Port Orford voted on candidates for 3 open council positions, and whereas Ann Velisis, Brett Webb, and Perry Rath were elected to fill 3 open 4-year council positions, and whereas the term for these positions start on January 1st, 2023, and expire on December 31st, 2026. Now, therefore, the elections official at the city of Port Orford hereby proclaims the election of these positions to be official. Signed this 12th day of January. Okay, so we'll change the date, but we've read the proclamation. Okay. 1B would be to approve the minutes of December 20th, 2022. Oh, we do need to approve the, oh, well, I'm going to need a motion on that. Thanks. That's why you're here, Taylor. My first proclamation for elections.
I'll make a motion to approve the election proclamation.
Second. First and second, any discussion on that? All right, I'll call for the vote. Councilor Tidy?
Yes.
Councilor Velisis? Councilor Burns?
Yes.
Councilor Pogwitz? Yes. And Councilor Webb?
Webb, yes.
We need to put roll call on this. I missed it. So let the record reflect that Councilor Tidy, Burns, Pogwitz, Webb, and Velisis are present, and new Councilor Rath has an excused absence, as well as John Isidore and Jessica Ginsburg, staff, and Council Shayla Kuba. And Chief Hobart is on the line. All right, 1C, we have already sworn in Councilor Webb, so we will
Do
move
we want to
on.
approve the minutes?
Yes.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of December 20th, 2022. meeting.
I'll second. Okay, any discussion on the minutes?
I think there was an improvement on the minutes.
I was going to say, I still think there's a lot of errors in them because there's important sections that are inaudible because the person taking the minutes couldn't hear. So I think we're still in that same boat that you described last time. But
Good. Well, at least I think we have clear direction moving forward with that. All right. So no discussion. I'll go ahead and call for the vote. Councilor Webb? Given the concerns I just heard, I'm going to say no. I mean, I wasn't even there, but if they're not, no. Councilor Blythe?
no,
Councilor Tidy?
Yes.
Councilor Burns?
I'm going to go yes.
And Councilor Pogwitz?
I wasn't there, so I'm abstaining.
That puts it on me.
Yeah.
Well, being the stickler I am, I'm going to have to say no. But
We got it right.
Yeah.
Critical, it's got to be perfect.
then that's the whole point.
I would propose that we could propose amendments. I mean, we didn't have time. That came up last time and then bring it back next time. I mean, would that be a way to handle it, Jessica or Shayla? So
It's not
that,
hearsay at that point, though? Oh, okay, okay.
I mean, some of the things I'm talking about are just like the names of the people are wrong or they're not listed. I mean, it's not like, some of the things are, you know, things that I said, so I would know, like, well.
What you can do is, I think what is fine is if you point out what you said and if you know approximately when, but otherwise I can just kind of go through the meeting and see, you know, as we go through and watch it.
This is so.
Total pain for
these are
you.
So. I would have a very difficult time approving any one of these ever, because I would never be able to remember it. When it's this specific, your memory has to be that specific. So.
Can we
Fred,
update
can we
it?
direct
An
Wendy
updated
maybe?
version of the minutes that's somewhat better than
I agree. What Jessica did, I thought was a really
Yeah, the
good.
updated version's way better. You're not looking at it. Go ahead.
Well, that's.
Yeah, it's next to it. The next one over. Oh,
So would we just eliminate discussion and just have the, what the motion was and the outcome of the motion?
Yeah, that, I mean, most minutes are the action items and maybe touch on
That way,
some
that would-
discussion.
It probably get you right every time that way.
I think what Jessica put in her report was actually quite good because it described the nature of the discussion. And I think that is important for future councils to know, how did we come to make a decision? You know, this was discussed and, you know,
But not the back and forth.
No, I don't mean to take away from the report. I was just saying minutes are minutes, and to get to the Robert's Rules types of minutes, they are much more condensed.
There are,
Much more.
and we have video, our photos. So I would move to table those minutes. until-
We're already done that.
Did you table?
I voted no, so yeah, we're.
Well, they, you can't just let them drift off and then, no, I have to be approved.
We do have.
So I move to table until our next regular meeting.
I'll second that.
I'll call the question, Tim?
Table.
Table, yes. Gary?
Yes.
Greg?
Yes.
And
yes.
Brett.
Webb, yes.
Thank you, Brett. All right, so that is tabled. We are going to move on to the election of council president. So I entertain a motion on that.
This is solely in your absence, correct? This is solely.
Yeah, it's who's gonna run the meeting when I'm not president.
Until like Councilor Weiss as council president.
That motion.
I'll second that.
Okay, any discussion on that? Okay, I'll-
The only discussion would be, probably it would
Ask
be,
her if she wants
Ask
to.
her.
Yeah. I didn't think we wanted
Okay.
what is the situation?
I see that on this agenda, it says that this is running the meeting in the mayor's absence, but I gather that the job could be a little bit larger than that. And I forget what it's listed in the city charter.
We looked, and there's not a lot, it's.
You guys both have done
I
it.
think it just requires that you have to subdue your personal position on things and then run the meeting. I mean, that's what it looks like. You become a less. A non-voting member. No, you're
No, you're still vote.
Oh. But anytime you're running the show, you lose that, you can't be as partial. I mean, as you can sit over here and say what you need to say, but once you come over there, I don't know, that's the only difference that when I ever ran meetings, it was that way. Tim, you as well, you just kind of.
Yeah, you typically,
You do switch gears.
so you become more of a listener like the mayor is. And then, but when you do the vote, you come to yourself and you vote and yes and no, and then move on. But typically you don't have you could still have input, but you typically just, you run it like the mayor and you just kind of go with the flow.
You guys know I will have an opinion, so it's a little bit hard.
Well, I think that in mayor's absence, there's emergency procedure. And those are the types of things that. Like if the chairman report or something, like the step in the city. So,
Yeah, I would be prepared to do that, and especially if, there could be some, like, for example, if I had to be away, that we have somebody else who could be a backup, or, if something needs to happen. So I figure we can sort that out.
Okay, so you're okay. I can go ahead and call for the vote.
I think
All right.
so.
Great.
Greg, yes.
Gary,
Gary, yes?
And yes,
Brett, and Tim.
And yes,
Okay. Well, okay, now we're down to the meat of a regular meeting. Is there any additions to the agenda?
oh, we did talk about, do we need to send a letter to the treasurer of Curry County? regarding this police levy.
I, for the language?
She's not, no,
No,
she's
for-
not getting information like she needs from the county.
For
Let's, maybe just.
No, that wasn't for the police.
Yeah.
But we don't even know how much we've gotten.
I retested actually, so, but,
We talked about this,
yeah. Obviously, there's nothing in their forms that they've been able to provide. Even today, I actually showed and they were missing yours again.
It's in Jessica's report, but the question is, do we want to make that a potential action item? And I think that's a good idea to discuss at
So
that
I
time.
moved to add
I second that.
All right, first and second, any discussion? All right,
Greg, yes.
Tim?
Tim,
Gary?
Curious.
Ann?
And yes,
Right.
Webb, yes.
Okay, so we will add that under 8D, new business. Presentations. Consent calendar, we already accepted the minutes, so we got it. Yeah, switch that to table the minutes. No, I know, but that's part of the consent calendar, like that and the financials, we, you know, two streamline things, we would accept those.
You know, for a while, they talked about the county, real briefly, they talked about billing, they wanted to bill us, pay us. Because there was, so I wonder if it's kind of a result of that. Just saying, throwing it out there.
Okay. Item 5, citizen concerns. Please speak only on old or new business items on the agenda. Okay. And well, Edward Kessler is on the consent calendar, but it is for items on the agenda. Oh, I'm sorry, I was right. We got 2. All right.
excuse me, I don't understand what you're talking about with what's on the consent calendar. Can you just, I don't
Well, the
see any.
consent calendar is from the minutes and the financials, like those business items should be accepted on the consent calendar or broken out if you have questions about, like if you wanted to accept the minutes, but you needed to pull the financials out, then we could do it. And it is kind of cumbersome because it's relying on the fact that the minutes are good and the financials are good. And not to say finances, but with the minutes we have, it'll be pretty.
Good to keep the minutes independent of each other within the consent calendar as well. So then you can pull one group out.
Right. Right. And so that is the theory behind it. We're definitely want to get there, and we're going to get there. We're transition.
Okay.
So no city concerns, departmental reports. I have really been bogging us down in these departmental reports. So I'll try to push it along. Public Works, John.
Really push for here is there's a set of the probes. So the grid system, we've got it all back together. We're going to install it on next Wednesday. If all goes right, we should be up and running by Wednesday evening. The DO probes, they tie into all of our air system and our PLC. Portland Engineering was down. We had some issues with them. They're all shot. They need to be replaced. 10K. Vendor is going to install for free. So we're going to go with a different vendor because Hawk is so expensive. They were twice the cost of Xylem. So and they've offered to come down and install it. They're trying to get their name out there. They've got good reviews in Portland and I highly recommend them. So that'll be probably my next push for after the grid system because without that, the blowers are running 24/7 wide open. We need to slow them down or we're going to blow the new ones up and we need to keep the wear down on them because we're going to kill them. So about 10K and I don't think it'll be much more than that. There was a 7% increase after January 1st. So there'll be a few dollars more. But I'm waiting to get an updated quote. And so that's the only really big thing down there right
Are
now.
they in stock?
They are. They're within 2 weeks, basically. So pretty important piece of that wastewater. We've had a lot of issues down there, but we're working them out slowly. We're gonna install the treated water pump that's been on the report for, I don't know, 6 or 7 months. Probably on Wednesday on, we'll come down to the grid system, they're gonna bring an extra guy so we can kill 2 birds, 1 stone. We'll do the grid system, we'll do the treated water pump. It's the second part of getting our water survey done so we can ramp up gallons per minute. I think that's really the most important stuff out that's on here. I've condensed it to 1 page and I'm gonna try to keep it like this. It's not as hard to understand. There's not as many questions.
Real quick, do we still have to break the wall out, get 2 doors in it? Is that part of this quote?
Coast Guard Hill there's another quote that just came in.
Just quote a new skid. So
Did I put it on here? Yeah, so I did meet with site, Rich Owens, the owner of Owens Pumps. And he sent me a quote with some, I gotta work out some details on it. I'm not 100% sure of some of the things on it, but it's half the price of the other 2 quotes we've received. So, no, it'll come as a complete skid. It'll be 2 pump system, positive pressure, kind of the way it's set up. And then there's a 3rd spot on the pump skid. So when we want to ramp up to the 1,000 gallon minute fire flow rating, we add 1 pump. The ramp will be there and everything. It's basically bolt the pump on, hook the wires up. It'll have a very simple control panel because all of the controls are obsolete. It'll just be a small little PLC on the box. It'll give us the display to the plant remotely on gallons per minute and how many gallons we flow. So we're going to kill 2 birds with 1 stone, plus we're going to get a meter on the opposite side.
And that before we had to get like new door, new wiring.
We're still going to have, we don't have to do the wiring. We're not going to go to 480. It turned out it wasn't feasible for the power saving.
Okay.
So we're going to stick with the 230 and we're going to have to cut a small hole in the wall in there and get the old one out.
But we don't have to get a whole new doorway system like we talked with the other ones.
It depends.
Depends, kind of right. It's a block building, got it.
If we cut it out, we should probably put it in a small garage.
Easier. Right.
We'll get
Does
to
that take the new pump, the additional pump you spoke of? Does that savings consider that? The 480 rather than going 480?
Well, I was gonna go to 480 because we were looking at a different type of pumps with it that required changing the transformers out, which CCE was very helpful, and we're gonna do a low cost reuse the ones because the ones that are up there are brand new. But the power savings just wasn't there. It'd take 40 years to pay it off, the power savings. And that was the whole idea.
But that was considering the additional pump that would come.
Yes, yeah, we'll still have plenty of power for when we add the 3rd pump. Just there'll be an extra stub out there for the 3rd pump when we're ready to install it.
Okay. So there's 3 now with the added.
There's 1 working pump,
3 skid.
right, and your 3 pump skid.
Got it.
Thanks, John. Any other questions for John?
Sorry. No, I'm good.
All right.
Thank you for all your work in the storm, John. Noticed a lot of the public works people out with trees and all that stuff over the past month. Thank you for all of that hard work.
You're welcome.
This isn't a question for John. Jessica, can we please get the water sold number on the water numbers?
Yeah, I think John and I have talked every week and try to.
All we need to do is take the treated water and then the water we sold and divide the water we sold by the treated water and we have our percentage. So we're just missing the one number.
Could we
I mean,
also
all of them are good though. It's nice to know what's going on in the plant. too.
put a date on these 2?
I think John said
That would be helpful. Thank you.
Okay, one thing I just realized is our liaisons, if they're gonna change or not. Which I imagine we can wait till we have the full council here next month and be all right. Okay, administration. And once again, thank you for your notes. It does help a lot.
There's just a few little things on here, that was considered. The Rotary Club, obviously, they come and had some questions with regard to, they didn't really think that they were managing the property. They wanted us to be able to kind of have a conversation with regards to if still want them to manage the property or not, and if we don't, then like type of scenario. I said that I would bring it. When you guys know that that's something we'll probably talk about at some point. Another thing is with the storms that came through, Monica actually filed for a state emergency with the state. And so we're filing tomorrow. I have all of our estimated costs for those storms, including payroll. We lost the drive line on the back. That's going to be in there. Any tree removal we had during that time frame, and obviously overtime, on-call time, all that stuff. And so I have the cost right now. We're right about $6,500. Is that what they're requesting? So there'll probably be a little bit more, because I think there's a little bit more that John was looking into, like mechanic costs and type of things, or some things being sold, but that's pretty close to where we are.
Can you tie in turbidity to that? Like the guys having to run that plant longer because of the,
That's a good question. You have to ask Monica that,
Yeah.
for sure, yeah.
I would think about that.
Dredge, you could probably get dredge, once we're ready as well. For the, my
This
fingers.
has to be cause from the storm. Yeah. Okay.
The sediment will, I mean, it will increase.
And actually sediment is the particular word in the little fill out sheet that they have. It's one of the things. Okay. Okay, so any questions on the administration report?
Yeah, I would love to have just a few more of these updates of things that we discussed in the past that you have here on your list. We brought up the question before about, that the Gold Beach doing their STR policy without land use. Will that come up in our, did you guys get to track that down and follow up on that, or?
Actually, Jody didn't give me the answer, but actually Marcus Daniel Kearns on that. And so he had said that a lot of people are not challenging it through LUBA. So he doesn't see any reason why it's not something that we can put in there. We would explain it a little bit more when we talk to planning on February, but that was what he had said when we were talking about it, just really briefly. Because I did question him about the breakup between the zones. And he had said that he hasn't seen, like I said, a lot of people that have that's being challenged at all.
Okay.
So that'd be in the license part of it, or would?
The license part.
I guess each one could be numbered.
Yeah, well, we're just gonna have to, well, he's doing that draft, and so we'll see a draft. I'll see it before we have the planning meeting in February, just to kind of go through. And then he'll be attending the planning. I think we're gonna do a workshop possibly, but we're gonna talk about that later on. And if then, I think it would be good that everyone be there for that part and have a conversation with him and ask questions if there's additional questions.
Yeah, you can put the address on it too.
And Jessica, you have this whole, this list of things we talked. Would you mind just briefly giving us like an update on where you're at with this? Yeah, these things with that. I mean, that would help me to understand like how we're following up on things we discussed last time.
Well, the first thing actually was the
Yeah, what happened with Sierra's
So,
paper?
you have to have a licensing policy of 2 million per occurrence and 3 million in the aggregate, is what the CIS said. And I can mark that.
So over the last couple of months, we've had like 3 or 4 people, 3 or 4 different entities come to us and want to use the community building. And it seems like we could come up with a canned answer of you need to have this insurance and you need to have a city employee, here, like just the answer.
So that's
A policy.
Because it should be pretty standard. And you kind of have to assume that there will be kids involved because
Second book. You open that, didn't it used to have?
It does, and it still does, but with that question, required because they're not getting that information, when the renters are filling it out.
another thing that we've identified probably won't be that.
And what about the skating? Are we gonna make that group have to figure out how to organize insurance, or?
It's not about the insurance at that point for skating, and that's the thing that we found out, that we are going to have to provide a chaperone. The city has to pay and have someone on payroll. It cannot be someone that's on council. It cannot be someone that is a volunteer on commission. They have to physically be on our payroll.
So how do we, so that's anyone in Public Works or that's, what is that? No,
It has, yeah, it's done.
An employee,
That's what I'm
we
saying,
could,
employee.
we could find someone that would be willing to do
Yeah,
it
that's
for
what I'm saying.
minimum wage. And, you know what I mean? Like, it doesn't have to
That's what-
be, they should be John, but it doesn't have to be John.
I'm not saying
I think he was so happy when he saw that job possibility.
What I'm saying is, we have.
Chrome
What are the public works? For their parents. I'm saying, we could find something.
Yeah.
So the skating club can happen, we just need to, council needs to approve in a sense, whereas we have Wednesday nights and Saturday nights.
Actually, the other thing about it is when you're describing someone that's here, that's right now currently, you're describing them as overtime.
Yeah, no,
But no, that's not, there is no catch. There's a problem and
No,
we're gonna
that's.
fix it.
it's not the catch, it's, yeah.
Volunteer employee is an employee. It's, that, I've never heard that in my 20 years ago. Never heard that. They had to do.
Are the police officers, employees?
But I'm just saying, there's a way to have this still happen in the city, which is something I would personally like to look forward to, especially for my park commissioners. It's something that, I mean, when I go to that thing, I went to all of them, most all of them, and there's 30 plus kids there on a, Wednesday night having fun. And it really brings the community together. Plus there's so many adults there. So it's not like kids were just getting dropped off. A lot of parents there with their kids skating and everything else. So I would really like to, as a council, try to figure out some money for this. We have that $11,000 that was given to us by the state. It's sitting there, remember, we had to allocate, and nobody spoke up for separate parks. There was $11,000 that was came to us 4 or 5 months ago that the state gave us. So I mean, we have some money that we can, in a sense, pay somebody for community stuff like this.
I agree. I think that would be a great thing. We need to sort it out.
We just need, we need to sort it out. This just came to light yesterday to me that this is a way we can do this. But I think that I personally, that's something I want to look into.
So is that a motion to hire part-time employees? or-
That, we have to talk about that though too, because with part-time, our union contract, keep that in mind, because we just talked about the union. And then the other side of it is also PERS at a certain point too. So we're not talking, we're not, ensure all of those things. So
For,
But
I just am letting everyone know.
I get that, but
for
that's,
2 nights a week, I mean, they wouldn't qualify for either.
it would
one,
be, it's what's it, 2 nights a week, so it,
Like, free.
but it's 5 hours a week, so 40, 20 hours a month, in a sense.
20 hours a week is what.
No,
Yeah.
yeah, it would need to be that. This would be max of 6, I would say 6 hours a week. They're, half hour before, half hour after. They've been really cleaned up afterwards, and they've been really taking care of the place before and after. But it's something that would really benefit this community.
Yeah, and I guess maybe this is something we should have added to the agenda because we're talking about it. Can we add things to the agenda?
You can make a motion. So
You're the mayor.
That's what I
why
want.
add it now?
Yeah, that's true. Well, because.
No, but this is for all
Can I get a
such,
consensus that we need to get a dollar amount on what we need to make this happen?
Hiring firemen can go with me, and so if I get a consensus, then I can work and make sure that we have the funds and go from there.
I would direct the city manager to make it happen. I move to direct the city manager to make it happen.
Second. Yeah, I would rather just get back, let these kids skate. We don't need to take 3 months to do this. But we do need to check into the PERS and that.
yeah. Figure
Insurance.
out the logistics of this, but this covers this for later on too, because if other people want to rent this out, that person can be such a community center manager.
Yeah, I was thinking we'd.
Right, a title or something like that, because like you said, there's other ways that this lets us have events like this, for later on.
Because this is good for the city.
Yeah.
I mean, we're small, but have some recreation activity.
And I see that.
Well, we have a pretty strong, people that want to help the city.
Yeah, so we have to.
Yeah, we have a motion in a second.
Well, we're discussing.
Yeah, discussion.
More discussion?
I would just add, I want to just add what we said before, that this is a great way to move forward on all the things that people want to do in the city. We could use this as the example to make sure we have a clear policy so we don't have to. So that would be, I'd like to see that too.
Yeah, because it should be pretty.
But
But some of the events, according to Jessica, are different.
Yeah.
Some are community events, some are individuals wanting to rent the building for whatever they want it for.
Or what if the Parks Commission, like say the disc golf,
Yeah, something,
Yeah.
you know what I mean, like we, and then-
how does that fit into the,
We're covered if we don't charge under recreation
That's where
community.
people know everyone recreational community applies to like parks, like
Outdoor
outside things, not
activities.
inside our building.
Okay. Well, that's why I'm.
they were moving forward. It's way better than, no.
And part of making this happen correctly might be, you know, you have your three parameters of this group, this group, this group. So if we just had an answer for anybody that came in, probably what's on the front of that, that page, that we just need that updated. So,
insurance coverage is different outside that door.
yes,
And then inside the door.
Yep. That's why people, you like.
And one thing I'm kind of curious about too is like if each person needs to get all this insurance for each event. I mean, I don't know how much that costs for every event or whatever, but it would seem, I mean, I wonder what would it cost for us to just have insurance so that people could use it?
That's question. I think the thing is, and Shayla, I think you and I talked about that because it's not, we do have the insurance, but then the person for some has to have that. Insurance also. It's not about us.
The insurance companies write the rules.
Yes, yes. So
Yeah, fourth
it's
door.
actually not that for an individual to do that for your own insurance. I think Lauren Kessler said it was like $500 for the whole year. He had the same type of policy for his, if I remember. Yeah, I think it was like $500 for the whole year.
Rachel's looking into that.
And we should look to see if the city, what our requirements would be too, you know, or if we could do it under the
That
umbrella.
thing, it was, are you serving alcohol or not? Those were the questions. It was, if you're for profit or if you're serving alcohol, the rates are different, but it was clearly spelled out in that.
Required, according to the form, to rent the facility.
And it was like $10
Yes,
or $20.
something, yeah, and well, we just raised the rate a little bit, just based upon what we had done with the Rotary Club, but, actually, they had done, but there's like, it's not very much, I mean, there's six things.
And it was $1 million bond, is what it was, right? $1 million or a $2 million bond.
No, we didn't.
No,
I love that it's progressing. I'm just making sure.
Why Rotary came up with that, really managing it, by not having any of those documents or stuff that's required, not really.
Well, it's just another layer of making it work. So
Yeah, because-
I'm gonna go ahead and call for the vote. Tim,
Tim, yes?
Greg,
Greg is.
Brett,
Web is.
Dan.
Yes.
yes.
I switched up.
Brett said Webb. Should be up there.
So the website, I met with a web designer today, actually for about an hour, almost an hour and a half. And so she's gonna start to set up like a test page, like something so we can look at it without obviously throwing it out there. And so, as, you know, spoke around a bunch of ideas, so I think a few things is, if anyone has pictures of Waterford that they would like to have us, you know, have on the website, because there's not a lot of pictures. I have mine, which I'm going to hand over, but anything I know, I was thinking actually of you guys.
I was saying, what's,
And Dave Foley is.
yeah, Dave Foley,
Thankfully, okay,
man, he takes pictures every day.
okay, yeah.
So if you want older pictures, it's Mr. Cook, right? Mr. Cook is who I would, if you want anything old, I would, Mr. Cook. is the gentleman I would
Oh,
go to.
right.
Man, he has everything.
So, yeah, so we're just, so kind of, we took a bunch of different ideas that we had seen and kind of molded it together, what come up with it. But it's just gonna be, we're not gonna launch anything until we obviously have the whole thing built, but, as we go through that process, so.
And this will still have the functionality of like all the code and.
It'll be a
and then-
lot, it'll be a lot more user-friendly with the
Great.
functionality.
Good.
with our-
That would be fabulous, Jessica.
I was actually, I'm borrowing and showed her those pictures. We didn't talk about that yet. The roof, we talked, you guys, we had changed the vote, I think, in the November meeting to be the metal roof.
Membrane.
Yes, it was a large dollar value, like $250,000.
Was that for the metal?
Yes.
Oh, right.
So-
Metal's gone, metal's double.
Yeah, so like we said, it's double, it's just tiny. But, we have to sit and wait or see if it goes down or what. I did talk to Tom West a little bit just to kind of see his feeling about it. He had said it, obviously, white metal is pretty expensive right now, so it's up to us what we want to do, but that was.
I thought we were gonna do the membrane. We were gonna get a bid for the membrane for all this.
Yeah, I'm waiting for that from 2 other people right now. I've only gotten one back, so I still have to read, so I'm waiting for the rest of that, but that was the one close to the metal.
Is that a local company or there's a company that does membranes, it's in the valley and they come to the coast because obviously we have high winds here, and they're really good. I don't remember the name. I can try and research it and get it to you.
I'll look and see that.
And we took 3-tab out of the equation.
Pardon me?
We took 3-tab or shingle roofing out of the equation.
I mean,
There's a lot of places around here.
I think they nailed them with 5 nails or 7 nails instead of 3 to 5. So I think they're.
Yeah, they go like this. Yeah.
No.
No, I mean, just if it was pitched.
Everything's
Yeah.
flat.
But we're talking about pitching.
Oh, but I thought that was too expensive.
It is.
The membrane would last for a long time and we just keep it flat and I thought that's.
With the new technology, remember, and that's what Tom West said to me also, is there's a newer technology with it, that it would last a long time with that newer technology.
Is that the guy selling
No, he's a
No.
contractor.
it? Contract.
Does he do membrane roofs?
He does, he said he does.
Oh.
We see the bid. We talking wastewater or are we
We're
talking?
looking at everything, but we want our.
Wastewater at visitor center.
What were you gonna say, John?
Well, I was gonna say that the shingles are much better nowadays than they were. I mean, they're much cheaper than metal.
No, we're talking about membrane.
Right, but the discussion started with shingles. so I-
And it says pitched or membrane, that's why we were mentioning that. is in
Because
case
we
they
still
did
have-
pitch it and put shingles, it possibly could be as cheap as a membrane. Or, I don't know.
That's true.
Even within metal, some are more expensive, like snap block is.
Yeah, and the gauge is huge
Yeah, the
too.
gauge is huge.
But, so that's
Because
pending.
we
we're
really
waiting.
need to get on that or.
Want to get that done by summer, don't we?
Yeah. The timeline might open up a little bit.
August, September, and October to do it.
This is one of those things where I don't quite remember, but didn't we talk about for the sewer treatment plant pitching it? Like that was for the one building that we really did want to have pitched, right?
That's the one
Okay,
I
just
think
making
we
sure.
should pitch.
Okay.
And that's the most protected one too.
Yeah.
Still flat.
I mean, from the wind.
Still
Oh,
flat.
not the backside.
I don't know when you were in it last, but it leaks.
Oh, yeah.
Bad. Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty bad.
So
Yeah,
it's easy to know.
no, we went.
That's-
You're gonna have to put rafters in it.
It's really rotten.
It's rotten, you gotta put rafters in it, and now all of a sudden you throw a pitch on it, and put whatever you want on it. Longer flat roof. You're gonna replace the rafters flat.
Yeah, now I guess that is the question. You just replace the rafters with trusses at that point.
Yes. Yeah.
I think that's the cheapest way.
Because I think once they peel it, you're gonna find out how much rot's in that. Soffits are all falling out.
Get it insulated or get a bigger heater in there.
Insulation.
Oh,
Keep the noise down.
Okay.
The wetland walkway, talked about getting a carpenter, but that, I wasn't able to kind of get very much farther after that, just because with the grant and all this other stuff too. But we did talk about getting a carpenter, John and I talked about it, but we have to find one that we can, that's licensed, I think it's. We have a bunch of people that are amazing and handyman technical, but they have to be licensed, so that's the catch that we're running into, so.
Couldn't we get one of them floating docks we have sitting over there in the backyard? Take the old one out, put one of those that are sitting in the yard? And no, I'm not.
I have no idea, I don't know.
I think it's up, it's on piers. It's not really floating. 'cause-
That's the other half of it is you've got to work in that wetlands without making a mess.
Yeah.
Because you're gonna have to go into the wetlands to repair that structure.
Well, maybe we should just make a path around the church.
Damaged, or was it just?
Rot.
It's never been treated.
Creek
You
is.
can't put treated wood in it.
No, it does have treated wood, actually.
In the wet.
Yeah, in the wetland. You can't do that anymore, I believe. That's why they wouldn't let us put these docks. They didn't want us to put the docks back in the lake with the trees. So, but they're in the lake.
We should drill well then.
Okay, moving on then, what are we at, watershed? Oh, you did that, so skating club, we hit that.
The offsite backup and contact today some more, so everything, the servers and everything's in order. So I just have some phone calls to make to Tyler, to make sure that there's certain things that she has to put on the servers to make sure they're compatible. And so once that's done, then they're gonna send someone down here to install and get that going in the offsite backup, all that stuff at that point will start.
And that'll be a monthly fee for the,
Yeah, it was $149 for the offsite backup.
to do a cloud.
Yeah, for this cloud, which is probably well overdue, to be honest, just in case if we lose everything like we did that one time, we were down for a long time, so it would be good. Union, we had a little update, so I think we're all good on that right now. The Rotary Club just goes back to how they're feeling that they really aren't managing the building accordingly, and so they were wondering two things. If we decide that they weren't and want to pull out of that agreement, what their rent would be, because obviously they get a little bit of a discount for their agreement as a management entity.
So they wouldn't do maintenance and repairs any longer either?
They really haven't.
But anytime we have a problem, they do, don't they, John, or not?
No,
We pay for everything.
you do it.
We've been over there quite a bit.
Okay, so there's stuff to talk.
I mean, they
Well,
haven't,
then,
haven't
that
cleaned up
ties
the ground.
in with our further conversation about skating, I think this will be part of that process. And I don't wanna lose my money.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if we can just get up the new plan, then.
I would look forward to, like, if you could bring us a proposal for what you think is gonna be the best working, would it, does that make sense as the way forward on
Yeah,
that?
that's for sure.
And obviously, they probably have some ideas.
It's not a problem.
Handrail issues there.
Yep. And did they help raise money for the handrails?
I don't know.
I think they kind of took that one and yeah, because it was real safe going up the stairs. I think they did take that drama. We have to be, real careful. Rotary's good in this community.
Real good.
We're
Yeah.
talking scholarships at the schools are
Oh, yeah.
unbelievable. And
It needs to be more than
we-
dollar.
it does. And we need to just work with them and get a feel of what they want and what helps the city and works with the city. So let's not be bullish about it because in the past, it was kind of a bullish talk about 8 years ago. And I just want to treat them with utmost respect.
Yeah, no, Bob Weber actually was the one who had approached me with this.
Yeah.
And that's, he kind of felt, he reviewed the contract, he's like, I really don't know what we're managing. And I said, so that's kind of what we started that conversation. He actually came in earlier today too, after there was something, we talked for a few more minutes about it, so, yeah.
Good first step.
Okay.
Is that assuming any responsibility, like risk, is there a risk?
They have to have an insurance. There really isn't, to be honest, I have the contract here, I read it a few times, and I'll, if you guys want copies, I'll give everyone copies, I don't mind obviously, but it was a 10-year contract signed years ago, we're still, I think we're in the middle of the 10 years right now. But there really wasn't anything, the biggest thing was, number one, obviously, they got a little discount on the rent for being manager. Now they've got that new sound system in there from us, so they have to pay us back a certain amount every month with regards to that, their meetings. But otherwise, there really isn't. I mean, they're supposed to be just watching and knowing who, and getting all the renter information for the road for the community center and the meeting hall. And then they collect that and they would give it to us once, twice a year, sorry. But that's about it. That's a break.
We need to discuss that too, that whole process, because those applications aren't filled out properly and perhaps we need to get them back in house.
Maybe the city employee can do it.
Pardon me?
city employee, he's in charge of that.
Maybe we bring it back in-house and one of our employees or maybe Parks might want to take it on. I don't know. But
It used to be a True Value.
But True Value was good. They were really good, but it's not working out so good, I don't think.
Is that where it is now?
Yeah, it's still over.
Oh, it is?
Yeah.
So it was a different group of folks.
Right.
You know, I just realized it's 2022. Probably.
I'm actually.
The website. the
2023.
website.
Oh, sorry.
On our test page to see how it works. But we had to create like a Google Calendar, which is fine. And that's easy to do and it was free. So we're just gonna go ahead and we're gonna try that out and see how it works.
That sounds
Becky
great.
agreed.
So how do we, like, what's the ballpark price on it? Having that, have 3 bidders or, you know what I mean?
Oh, it's going through Jesse. It's actually included in our contract. The Denny, it's other people, not just Jesse, but it's Denny. It's included in our contract that we have with Denny. So that's
Okay.
like, yeah. I agree with that. Yeah. So actually, it's been built in our contract for years, but never taken, never.
Right.
So there you go.
Well,
That's
we
great.
can make up for it here in
So,
like
yeah, yeah.
the next 6 months, no problem. Any questions on finance?
So I did have some questions. I don't know if you can easily answer them, but I don't even know exactly what line it was, but I didn't see on our water curtailment effort, I don't see the breakout on the fines or the fees.
It's right here. It's on page 39. Yeah, it's on page 39 and it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's 6 line down. It says curtailment fees.
Got it?
Yeah, I think that's.
Lost where I was looking at. Where, so this one?
Yeah, so something.
6 lines down from the top.
19,000.
Yes,
And that's going where?
it's in the water.
But where is the money going? Just,
Well, it goes into the water fund.
so there's been no direction as to where that no allocation for those funds?
Not yet.
And do we have a number on how much water we're saving from our curtailment effort?
It's not, you know what, I can get you something, I can look it up, but I don't know, sometimes lately it's been interesting because we've had some savings, but then some months we have massive leaks. And so it was hard to tell. I mean, we had a 40,000 gallon leak last month.
But that shouldn't change how much is sold. I mean, the 2 numbers that Pat asked for earlier tell you what
Right.
what you treat and what you sell. That's, I mean, and what you don't sell, there's your loss, right?
Well, not necessarily. There's stuff out there that's not needed.
Right, and like the building.
Right.
Oh, the building actually.
It's got a lot.
Yeah, this is here.
It's still
Yeah.
what happened after that. The loss is right here.
But true never was, and like the fire department, so the trucks and stuff, so we don't have, there's a lot out there that, but what's not sold. It would be nice to know.
Is the fire department still reporting now that you mentioned that? Are they
No.
reporting to you?
Nope.
We used to get reports every month on what they guesstimated they were using,
Or there's a meter
It
on
really
that.
helps, given the situation that we're in.
but they don't always get it there.
It's
Or
hard
get it on the loop.
Conversation.
I'm sorry.
I understand, for me, it's hard to support a curtailment effort that's not working, that's charging how much? I mean,
That's the whole year. That's not,
That's the whole year.
that's the whole year.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's over 6 plus.
and
6 months.
what was mine?
Plain
It's the
sick.
$19,000 year to date.
$17.
And the biggest one on there, actually, I can tell you as much, was Ray's. Remember they had you and I talked.
They had to leave
So
it water.
yeah, so that's for almost over a month.
What about that other commercial property that you spoke of that was using?
Oh, they still are, but they're not anywhere near where they were. Ray's was the biggest
Is that the
one.
one with the policy that required them to have the
already talked to them?
I think
Gary,
Mr.
I'm
Burns tried to make contact with them. Yeah.
Oh, they're still.
No, they're not, but yeah. no, That's the one he's talking
We
about.
actually
Yeah,
shut.
they're doing it this time.
Are they doing better?
Yeah, but it coincides with rainy season too, so.
I agree. But, yeah, so that's that, I think actually like 5 or 6, maybe plus thousand.
Really?
Because they had to run, it was over a month, it was almost 2, if I remember correctly, I'm trying to remember off the top of my head. But their cooling system, I think, wasn't working, so they ran a hose 24 full laps for 40, 50 days.
Was it a swamp?
Yeah, that's what they did. Yeah, they did.
And fire blowout usually isn't that much. I mean, it's probably 10 to 20,000 gallons, but not as much as you would think. Like a broken hose line will do one of
But
the
like,
fire departments.
like you and I had spoke in the past, so it's hard to come up with that number that we're trying to get from Jessica, water in, water out, without all the little pieces. The curtailment.
There's only 2 pieces.
Fire pieces.
Oh, right.
Backwash was a big one years ago, we didn't even.
That's on the other side of the meter. So it is
Yeah.
fire
I
protection is the
understand.
only one that
Contractor.
should.
There's city, isn't there still city city facilities that are not metered?
So when you were on the council, the visitor center wasn't, I believe it is now, and this building wasn't, and I believe it is now.
That's
The
correct.
water, the treatment plant was metered?
The water.
Most of it is,
Most of it is?
yeah.
But not completely? I'm
Well,
just saying,
because it's the whole problem with the contact time. If we didn't have that sink in
It's
the
that one
freaking plant, we'd been in Illinois the whole thing.
5 feet away.
Let's not talk about the sink in the bottom way.
That was funny to learn,
I can get
but
those
not
numbers.
funny.
I can get those numbers.
Well, it's hard to calculate because you don't know what, you have to know what you had in your tank. And then you're running all month, right? And at the end of the month, how much of that water did you use out of the tank? How much of the water is in the tank?
Mm-hmm.
Without a direct meter at the tank, it's pretty hard to give you an accurate. We'll never be able to give you an accurate until we get some meters in place. There's just no way. They're saying, when I got this at 40 to 50%, I don't think it's that much. I think it's probably a third.
30, that's what we found. We set around 30, and my thinking is that, again, I'll say it again, I know people think it's crazy, but 30 is not that bad for a municipal water system.
That's pretty bad. It should be around 10 to 15 at the most. It really should.
But we're afraid.
We're literally sitting around trying to guess how much this water makes. They can have a lot of time on that. Until we have the numbers, we.
None of it matters if you've got 18 inches of water up on the hill.
Yeah.
So
Right.
none of it matters.
Therein lies the problem. And I'm not, well, I'm never arguing with John, but we're just looking for percentage. Like you have this amount, you have this number on your meter at the start of the month, you have this number on the meter, which you are right, especially if you get a big leak. But
Well, it's not metered, so we have no idea what's leaving the tank.
no, you got 33,000 foot.
Right, but
I know that, I'll talk about it outside of.
Right. Hey, but real quick, let me have my nickel back. I did forget some electronic meters. So I met with the vendor yesterday. They popped in for a few minutes. Propagation study was done. Hope I said that right. Basically, it's the whole aerial view of how we're going to operate. So it looks like we only need 2 or maybe 3 collectors. That'll get 96.8% of the meters all hooked up. So next movement here is call them and they'll be ready to go. So if you want to have a special meeting, if there's only a couple, you guys can hash out some questions that you may or may not have. We can do that. We can do it by Zoom. He's out in Bedford, I believe, at Ranch Pass. I just got to let him know we got to set up the time. And, but he said, I can't remember the name of that place, Workforce, yeah, something. They would be starting like ASAP if we give them the go ahead to keep going.
Okay.
So the grant, if you want to buy out of it, we wanted to buy out of it at the end of the grant. With the grant money.
So we would do per meter to start.
Yeah,
Oh, I see.
To do the rent. And then we just buy them out.
Okay, no, I'll get you up to speed on that. We authorized, we authorized the money for the meters. It was a done deal, and then the contact thing came up. And that feels bad.
Water plant money,
there's money now because, because of COVID, there's more money than there.
For whatever reason.
Right.
We directed the administration to make that happen.
We robbed the money to do a PLC computer in the water plant, and we robbed the money because the state said our contact time was hot.
Which is ridiculous. We talk about tanks and pipes and all kinds of crazy stuff.
Yeah, that's right. Tail end.
Yes, I know.
But what about the money that we have now? Are we asking for a grant? Just,
No, there's a silver lining to this. This company came to us and they said, we will install these meters for you, put in the system for $6 a meter a month.
As a rental.
Which initially sounds like a lot, but if you do that math over the lifespan of the
It was
meters.
like $32,000 a year for us. It was like $32,000 a year in rental fees. But that also, if it screwed up, they were up both, not us. If the meter screwed up or
It's
anything else.
electronic.
the meter itself.
Well, they're electronic read, like they're electric, yeah.
You know,
We have to sell like crazy, and we determined at that time that it was beneficial for the city to use our own
Right.
workforce to install them. And it was gonna be 20 a month, maybe we could do 20 a month.
Right.
no, but it was not of this scope. They wanted to have
It's a different meter.
And that was included too. The $6 was included installation. That's what I'm saying. Without,
No, that's a
not us.
company that came to the
So they
city.
lease you the
Yeah,
meter?
yeah,
At the lease?
yeah.
Right.
And we can
They're
buy them
making,
out.
trust me, they're making good money.
But we can also buy them out though, too.
It's a lease, you lease the machine.
with the
Yeah,
option to
they-
buy, yes.
And these meters read on both sides, so they can help us
Well,
better
that was
detect
one of the
leaks.
big
Yeah.
problems.
Yeah.
That was the first direction was to meter certain main lines.
They don't pay for it, so.
So it sounds like a lot has been done over there.
Yeah, we just need to make sure that we put all the numbers into the math, like employees and overtime.
So John, what do we need to do to move forward on this? Is this a,
This is why I kind of wanted to step in, because I think Marla and I actually had a conversation with the FEMA brick grant guys, so because we have the meters in our brick grant application, and we can't, and if we want to keep it in there, we cannot do anything with those meters till the day we get awarded that money. So if we choose to not do that, that's fine, we just need them to take it out of our application.
well, wasn't
Is
there
that
something
considered-
about how we could move forward on things that would become part of our match? or-
Yes, but actually, if it's considered, we cannot break ground or do any construction type of activities until we get awarded that money. But
Okay.
we can do engineering and those type of things, yes.
Time out. This just tied into a later part of the
Yeah.
agenda, so we'll move on and not forget that
Yeah.
we need to talk about this. It's super important. Because you pretty kind of just said we can't do anything for 12 to 18 months. So,
No,
I
we want
mean,
to keep it in the grant application. That's all.
So we'll talk about the meters then.
Yeah, we'll talk about it.
well, not just the meters, like that's everything.
Is that-
That's all the projects.
The math is important to discuss. We
We'll-
need to
we'll talk
discuss how
about
much it's gonna cost.
Okay, well, so any more finance questions?
Brent, did you have something else? Said you had.
I did, but I just,
Got it.
Sidetrack with some, yeah, business is kind of important stuff.
I don't have anything. Thank you.
Planning.
So with the planning stuff we have in here, we actually have, we received a appeal for the decision that planning made to go ahead and extend the conditional use permit for the 1602 and 1603. So next city council meeting, we'll be having the hearing on those appeals to the city council for those two items. And then also on February 7th, when we're supposed to have the next planning commission meeting, as we had just said, is Daniel Kern is going to be there with the draft of the ordinance. And I know that we had talked about doing a possible workshop with planning. So that's why I kind of thought it would be good to merge those two meetings while Daniel's there if we can. So I'm just throwing that out there as an option.
Did we have, I kind of heard a couple things about a contract with Crystal Soji again. Is that?
It's pending, yeah, but it's actually, yeah, we're talking with them, thought we were gonna get an agreement, but we need to have a discussion first about the process before we can write that.
Perfect, thank you. That's all I had.
if that was going to happen, it could be great to have her engaged in this discussion too, or just participating perhaps, if possible. I guess we don't need it because we're not there yet, but we think it would be beneficial. I think it sounds great to have a workshop and have him where we can, and if we have a workshop, I would propose that we, just think about how to make it an effective workshop ahead of time so that we have, the specific things that we need to consider as a council, like the specific outstanding questions. I think that would make it a more productive, and especially if we're going to have him here. So.
Yeah, and like, I think the biggest thing is once we get a copy of the draft.
Yeah.
That would be huge too.
And
So,
we'll get that ahead of time, right?
Yeah.
That would be my only question, is we're gonna have a workshop with planning to discuss moving forward, but then we're gonna be talking.
Well, I think it's more,
Productive.
I think it's more, I think maybe if you guys have questions, it's up to you if you want to attend. He is gonna be there that day, but that's their normal plan. So if you guys want to do a workshop before or after, that's fine, and then you guys can have your.
Can we have interaction with them since we're gonna be the ones that decide? We can? Okay.
Well, I mean, that'd be nice, that'd be a nice change of pace for planning decisions. No, that's what we're talking about. We were gonna originally do a workshop with planning because of the SCR issues and just to kind of get the reset, because they've been working on it for a year. And so we were gonna do a workshop, and now that's tying into Daniel Kearns, is an attorney who specialized in short-term rentals in the state, so.
And then he was here to help us,
Write drafts.
and we hired him.
Yep.
And we paid him how much?
$250 an hour. The maximum amount that I was authorized was 10 hours, $2,500.
For this
For
contract.
the STR.
Unless she's authorized to spend.
Go farther.
And the reason we did this, Brett, or council was before I came on, but I was part of, I encouraged council to do this is because the planning commission was kind of going around in circles and not having guidance. And he's an attorney who's done a lot of this kind of work in other cities. And so it just seemed like it would be a good investment to just get it done so we can move forward and not have planning going around in circles.
Just one question, do vacation rental owners hate him or love him?
I have not gotten any feedback either way. We've only had vacation rental owners come to the meetings, and obviously they do not like restrictions being put on them.
Well, yeah.
But that's a given, and so, but that's basically the extent of it. But we have not had a lot of feedback.
Does he seem partial to anybody? I mean,
I think he has a strategy, which is the idea of putting it mostly in the business license to avoid litigation in the future, one of the reasons it seemed good to get him is because a lot of cities have tried to do this and have gotten sued, and it's a very complex issue, and there's a lot of case law that's still emerging, and so it was just a very complex issue. So I think the goal was find somebody who could help us navigate it so we don't get sued, so we meet our purpose of protecting affordable housing, coming up with some reasonable balance. And it just sort of seemed like instead of giving this to our planning commission to just go around in circles on that, it would just help us be effective.
So I have one question, Jessica, on this last letter from Daniel. So in the 4C, 10MU, all the other commercial zones, down at the bottom of that paragraph, it says business license are non-transferable. Why would a commercial entity not be able to have, a business license transferred?
So right now, actually, all of our business licenses state that.
But
So,
does that mean
I think it means.
it can be transferable, but it's not just an automatic process?
that's right.
Okay,
That's right.
that's all. I
Yeah,
just
yeah.
want to make sure that we weren't locking a business owner for selling a business out.
No, yeah, no. it's just-
Well, that's what it's intending to do
Got it.
up in the. See, I don't like that. That can't even be in there.
Well, in a commercial zone, there aren't going to be any limits, so that's the first thing.
Yeah, this is
So,
just a
but in a
No,
zone,
no,
there are.
no, read this. Across all zones, and it says 4C, 10MU, and then at that the fourth sentence, it says business licenses are non-transferable, and they're talking about those zones. A
Yeah,
business should be able to sell their license, person, or sell their property, and a person should be able to come into the city office and get a business license.
The very last sentence, it says, I don't recommend you limit transferability of licenses. So I don't see where,
No, I'm looking at this letter dated December 22nd, 2022.
the email that I've given you.
It was the one she just gave us.
Oh, okay. That, you know what that.
Well, we gotta have some sort of mechanism to make sure that the new business license has, like, say we did this and you have to have these 3 inspections. You still need to do that inspection when the new people come in, you know, or when you're issuing it.
I think that's only in R1 and R2, the way I'm reading it.
And
so this is what we have to discuss, Tim. This is what we have to discuss at this workshop and ask him.
Because I mean, that's just ludicrous. I mean,
No,
that would every commercial business in town, if they sold, the buyer wouldn't be guaranteed to be able to get a business license. And I don't think that's what we're trying to do.
It's
No,
just in
I
the
think-
residential.
Yeah, I think-
Well, but I'm just stating what this says right here.
We will have plenty of
Okay,
to
cool.
talk about this. Any other planning questions? Okay, if there's something really sticking out for your liaison report, please speak up. But we need to start turning.
I want to just do something really quick because it's really great news. Our watershed council, our watershed planted 420 trees up in our watershed first week of July or January during one of those storm breaks. And so that's very exciting and really great piece of news. And we recently finished the draft of the fire risk reduction plan, and that will hopefully be coming next month to you.
Port, just real quick, because it is important and good as well. We have received 3 proposals for the new crane, so we are moving forward with that, and it's getting closer every day.
Nice. The only thing I had on TLT would be grant reports.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Can,
And those don't need to wait till the next meeting.
No, I haven't gotten any. I talked to Susan about them actually last time she was in the office, right? And so she knows that was.
for Parks, can President Thompson for Parks Commission is connected?
Absolutely.
Thank you. Check, check. Check, check.
All right. I don't know what we need, 19.
This should be powered on, all of them. All of them.
Put the little bit.
Oh. Good to know. Well, good evening, city councilors. My name is Brian Thompson. I'm the chair of the Parks Commission. And I think it's only fair to state that the state of the Parks Union right now is frustrated. And I'll try to keep it very brief, but in transparency to share kind of where we're at. Number one, and this has been for the last few months, there's been over, my understanding, about $27,000 that individual donations from folks mainly in Port Orford have given towards the Parks Playground. And those numbers are nowhere to be found. Obviously, this is a point of frustration. Ciaran and Fraser, myself, and many of the Parks commissioners have worked very hard to raise those funds. And so that's one area of concern that needs a big flag. Second is items that we were told by city administrator have been purchased back in May. And my understanding is there's only been several of those, over 20 items that are that are in city's possession. And we've told that they have been purchased. We just want to see those items. We actually asked for accountability of where they are. As chair, it's been very difficult to maintain the Parks Commission. Each individual that is currently on the commission has told me over the past few months that they intended to resign. As I was writing my
resignation letter. I was encouraged to stay the course. But there's been a number of things that folks are very frustrated with. And we would like to have a clear path forward. I think the bottom line is some of the numbers to know what we can actually work with. We've since June and July of 2022 have asked what can we use, what is available, and even then when we do try to spend those funds, then it's unmet. And so these are, as a matter of transparency, what I have encountered, and obviously would love to see these things solved. I mean, I have a 4-year-old and a 1-year-old. I'd love to see that playground happen. Would love to see the city contribute towards this playground. And frankly, I'm here for the recreation of our youth and to see that benefited. It was being a part of putting in the new putt-putt course that really got me interested in recreation here in Port Orford, and I would like to continue with that, but with the understanding that number one, there's transparency, there's accountability, and that all the parks commissioners feel like the concerns that they have are met, if that makes sense. By all means, please ask me questions, because and I hate to report these things, but it is what it is. And so that's where we're at.
Understood. Thank you for the clarification. And not to start a dialogue here whatsoever, but if you have any clarifying for
So first of all, the 27,000.
Yes.
The income statement, it closes at the end of the year. Income statements all go to zero.
Okay.
It goes to the balance sheet on the bottom, and then it moves up. So your money's still there. It's just not on the income statement. It's in the balance sheet.
and how do we, okay, see, and that's.
It's just going through, when you close the
Okay,
income statement.
okay, so that's
Yeah.
something we need to work on. What was the other one that you wanted to weigh in on?
Well, no, this is, I mean, the soccer rules have been sitting in there. They're sitting, I told, Councilman Creedy.
Okay, never mind. We'll just stop this. We'll just stop this conversation. Thank you for the clarification.
Thank you.
Our workload lightened up, and we're striving very hard to get this communication clear and things, better for everyone. We're really into workshops next month, and one of the ones we're gonna really shoot for is to get all the committees, or at least the committee presidents, to come in, so we all get on the same page about the process and the reporting, all that stuff. So.
That's wonderful. I think if we could clarify what things Parks is actually responsible for, because we didn't even have any reports of wetlands, which my understanding is that is supposed to fall somewhat with Parks.
Right. No, and that's,
We
come with those
I
kind of
just read
questions.
that in this meeting and like, oh, interesting. And I think there's, these numbers, if Parks could get some clear numbers and then be able to execute purchases or have it done, man, that would help.
Right, no, and that all ties into the processes that we will be
Okay.
talking about. Because like everything else, there's red tape and hoops and hitches, but the process also makes the communication clear, and that's what we need in the city regardless. And that's like the common theme that we've had for the last couple of months. So, thank you, Brian.
Thank you for hearing me, and thank you
very
for
much.
all you're doing as
Oh,
city.
and just as, to give you guys props, the park, I know I say it every time I see you, but the park is looking great. There's always people there. It's awesome. And everyone really, really appreciates everything.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much
And
for your
Tidy,
service.
2022, Tidy did a ton of work on that.
Some
Disc golf and
Louisiana
all
people
that.
there just a second ago before the meeting, so
Yeah.
playing disc golf in Louisiana, so it's pretty cool.
And Eddie will be having something to say in a little bit. Looking forward to that. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Thanks
Thank you
for
so much, Brian.
your volunteer service.
Okay, any other liaison reports? Okay, we're gonna move on to old business then. 7A, adopt the forest stewardship plan.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll just give a brief thing on this. It is part of our watershed loan. Yeah.
Second.
All right, so now we can have our discussion.
Okay, sorry, thank you about that. Just that we, as part of our SRF loan application and just part of our plan for managing our drinking watershed moving forward, we have this great report put together, and we have to adopt it now to qualify for that loan and also to have this great document moving forward. As I think I mentioned to you the draft before, it's got really useful things. And John, if you ever have time with all the disasters, hopefully you'll get a chance to read through it because it talks about some of those problems like our culvert and best ways to manage our roads and all that jazz. So anyway, this we would like to adopt tonight as part of our grant or loan application.
So isn't shutting down roads and promoting fire protection kind of counterintuitive? If there is roads there and it gives you access to forested areas, what is the advantage to decommissioning?
This doesn't really recommend decommissioning roads per se. It allows access for roads, but there is one road that has this big bad culvert in it that's getting crushed and is rusting out. And so if we don't deal with that road, which is not really needed for access, we could get a problem if like trees fell in and flood the culvert and we had a road rain event. It could blow all the material into our reservoir and be a disaster.
And that's a different culvert than the one down?
That's the culvert that's,
valley?
no, it's in the valley. It's where we walked. On that
It
field
is
trip.
that one. It
Yeah.
is that little short.
Yeah. It doesn't, there's no other road decommissioning, but it doesn't encourage building roads in, unless there's a real good reason, especially not in the riparian zones that are where we're supposed to protect our water. Yeah, that's my
And I'm wondering how we're going to address that culvert, if we're going to, and when we would.
So I think you and I think Ann and I had actually come to, Ben actually did the forest management plan. He suggested that there are grants out there that covers 100% the removal or fix of the culvert or whatever is suggested at that time.
Yeah, and part of that, like all of these things that we're working on right now, is having that in this plan then will help us when we go to try to get a grant. And at the last meeting, we actually mentioned this problem to Marlon and said, gosh, is there any way we could rope this into the BRIC grant too, because it's in our forest management plan. And it's important for our raw water. So I think that's another reason why it's good to have this plan. Plan can be amended, but the gentleman from Springboard Forestry came out, did a great job, I think, and so I think it's a good document.
It seems pretty flexible. I mean, from what I read, clearly you're I would say you're a bit more aware of what all that means, but so it seems really flexible to me. There was one sentence that I read that pretty much disallowed activity regardless. An overhead, something involved up above. Canopy? That wasn't the term. It was, anyway, I think flexibility is good. It looks more flexible. I feared that it wouldn't be flexible enough. And it looks very flexible. I mean, there may be a time when there needs to be some selective harvesting. There was one section that didn't allow even selective harvesting.
Well, he looked at the forest types, and the forest type that's closest to the stream is very steep, very erodible soils, and thank heavens, it's actually like a really beautiful, good, big forest that's very spongy and holds the water and is shaded and damp, so it's like exactly what we want for our watershed. The areas that are farther out are the ones where it's been logged before, it's probably like in another 10 years, we need some thinning. So he looked at the land section by section and basically came up with what he would recommend.
There was one, it doesn't really matter. I guess it was the term, I wasn't familiar with the term. And so I guess I was kind of
Trying to figure out what the difference was, the difference. I trust your judgment on that end. If it's a good document, then I will support it.
Any other questions?
All right, well, I will call for the question then. To adopt the forest stewardship plan. Ann?
Yes.
Great, yes.
Gary, yes?
Counselor Webb?
And yes.
All right. Okay, 7B, BRIC grant update / discussion.
Marlon, if you want to come in.
Also, your question.
So we submitted that on Friday for the state, both of the applications, the one for the raw water and one for the distribution. Right now, when we have a 2-week kind of period where the state gathers all the documents and the information that they received, reviews it, make sure, lets us know if there's any little changes or something, but then we create a huge package that then is going to FEMA on the 27th. So it all has to be gone at that point on the 27th. We had a conversation today actually with them with some little adjustments in there that they requested with regards to our budget specifically. But it was the contingency portion. We had obviously built in a little bit more contingency because we are so rural and have to bring in our own construction. We don't have a construction crew that's local. We don't have really anything that's local that'll help us with that. And so FEMA likes a certain percentage, which was 5% contingency. And so based on our conversation this morning, they suggested that because that is part of what we have, built into our contingency funds, that we actually move them up to the construction cost. So we're just kind of in the middle of moving those funds around right now and then, updating it with regards to that. But it's going to be the same dollar value at the end, just a movement from contingency up to construction. So ultimately, nothing in the long run change.
One other topic from that meeting, just to bring it out, was the feedback was that for fire protection was a very positive thing and bringing more emphasis on the seismic and the seismic improvements, because although it doesn't spell it out per se, reservoir, pipelines, fittings for those pipelines, within that are the seismic valves, the structures and the upgrades to the existing facilities bring everything up to a seismic level. So, I mean, it's an emergency, pre-emergency grant, so they want to try to potentially address and mitigate issues. Fire protection and suppression are a big one, as everybody knows from the past few years and the battles that have happened. Seismic out here with the Cascadia subduction zone, making sure that your infrastructure, if we have an event, your infrastructure is resilient as possible. We're never going to protect it 100%, but we can do things to improve it. And it's all in there already. It just, he has to make sure that we bring that out a little bit more in the application. So sent some language over to Jessica for inclusion, and we'll kind of finalize that.
So our treatment plant and our water company and our wastewater treatment are both.
No.
It's not very common for people to fund that without, they want you to move your infrastructure. They want you to move your city hall. They want you to move your fire department. They want all of that infrastructure. It's not possible. And we're not pursuing that.
No, and Monica's on the phone too with the, but no, we're not, and that's something that we've talked about with her. Even they've asked for us to move City Hall, and I mean, just like you had said, Monica, I'm sure you can hear me, so if you want to jump on, because you kind of know better answers some of these. But it is actually in our plan, in our Curry County plan, since I think it's a 20-year portion for City Hall, because we have emergency services here. The last one that we did with Monica. I'm trying to think what other ones were in there.
Well, we have a raw water storage facility to be added to the system. We have a land acquisition, and part of that initial phase in that is where can that be located? What's the best location for that, so that you have a secondary raw water source to increase your access to raw water. we don't know exactly where that's going to be at right now. That's part of, if you go through those and you look at that on the raw water side, there's kind of a preliminary phase to that. So it's that siting. There's also a line item there for property acquisition. So that's all built into there, so that in the event we can locate and identify a site that meets that requirement, because I agree. I mean, putting new infrastructure in, like new buildings, is very hard to do. Doing upgrades within the existing facilities, it's a little easier to work through and get that done, especially when there's not a lot of options to relocate the primary systems.
And since Brett asked that question, I wasn't going to ask this one, but I will follow up because I've been wondering about this. One of the things that's in our raw water treatment plan is going to be to do this upgrade of the Garrison Lake intake, which, as you explained to me, it sounds like you have a good plan for doing that. But I have wondered, since that's pretty much at sea level and we've had these high tides that are almost going over the beach, we also had this old reservoir that's totally filled up on Gold Run. And I know it was kind of deemed maybe not usable, but it is higher. So I just was wondering, is it worth thinking about that as a secondary source?
$1 million worth of excavations left.
Well, we're going to be excavating the other one.
And I can't answer the question.
Okay.
I mean, within the master plan, the projects and infrastructure presented in this application are the recommendations.
Yes, got it.
Within that master plan. So the Garrison Lake, the Hubbard Creek, there was multiple things looked at in both of those, as well as well fields.
Yeah.
Were also investigated, and a vast majority were all deemed not suitable or not feasible due to certain situations or concerns.
Yeah.
And so they had their final recommendations. Those are what are presented within this document.
Yeah.
And just updated from those old dates to current dates on the
Yeah.
costs.
What master plan was that?
The 2014.
14?
And 2005, some of it's from 2005.
Yeah, there's, I think, 4 or 5 pipeline projects from the 05.
I have a quick question for you, John. Can you recall how low the tank got when we got to Lindbergh? How far? 14. Okay, so how can our system support fighting firefighter? It takes a lot more than just having a hydrant at the end of the line to serve that much usage. And I mean, and you got Garrison Lake right there. So they were a rural fire department. You can literally draft out of the lake on the dip or the dip over in this part of the forest. And I just, you know me, always back to the basics, like what's the use of fire hydrants out at the end if they run out of water in 12 hours?
Well, we're gonna, number one, have more tanks, because we're gonna add another $1 million gallon tank.
Right. It just boils down to priority 3 adding up to more than priority 1 and priority 2.
Well, but
And a big portion of that is putting lines out to the UGB.
But
It's being told to me is for fire protection, but if we don't have the facilities to provide the water, then how do we skin that cat?
Well, I think the biggest thing is that we said is that if we come up with projects, number one, I think we all kind of are would be shocked if we get to priority 3 without having other projects that happen as we, drill in and get into the line. Because at that point, it's just the scope of work change to move those funds from here to here. So that's why it's kind of important that we have those other priorities, because if we do come up with something that is, that we need to fix right away, we still have access to funds. I think that is the biggest thing.
Saying I get unclear on that, because sometimes it seems like we're confined within this master plan, like we have to do this, but then now I just heard that things are fluid.
We're confined.
But we were told a couple months ago that no, we have to do it like this, and that might have been the time.
Well, we need to be able to pull projects that are interrelated, and we have reference to the master plan in both of the applications. If let's say we got done with the projects and we've got extra money left over, most funding agencies, you can go to them and say, I have 3 more water lines that over this past 5 years have become an issue. We have additional funds. We'd like to do that work. They're identified in the master plan, and they're identified as a concern. And those are a lot easier to bring in. We've talked about City Hall. City Hall isn't in the water master plan. So to pull in something that's completely unrelated and it's something that the community needs isn't going to be as easy as a request to modify and change direction. The applications that are presented encompass between the two applications, everything within the master plans outstanding that needs to be addressed. That doesn't mean that every single thing is actually going to be accomplished. I mean, we don't know if what the costs are going to be. You guys aren't going to be forced to complete every single project that's there. If you have the funds, I don't know of another funding package that is 90% grant, 10% match, and you can use state funds and other avenues to raise those funds to help cover those matches. So this is a great opportunity for the community to go in there and go, we have established 2 projects, both projects have needs and they're both critical. If one goes forward, you're still improving. It's the treated water side. And I was talking earlier with one of the counselors, it's kind of like your water plant a lot of times during the year is running 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It's not built to do that. You're wearing it out. You're also making more water and you're spending money to do that. If you get the treated water side corrected, that will improve. It may not solve that, but it'll help take the burden off your treatment plant. You'll be able to fill your tanks better. You'll have more treated water storage to access throughout the year. That being said, it's still
gallon per minute up with the contact tank, and now it's a little bit.
Yeah, but in the long run, I'll tell you this right now, you need to do both. You need to improve the entire system. Right. This is a pathway that could potentially get you on that process to get these addressed across the board. Now, it may not, maybe one comes in, maybe both come in, maybe neither come. But actually moving forward to try to get some of this stuff addressed and improved is the critical aspect that I see here. And I love the fact that we're having the conversation. You guys have 70%, if I'm remembering correctly, is AC pipe in your water system. That's a lot of AC pipe. That's your primary system. And that's one of the issues I think you battle with all the time. It's brittle. That's a critical path. The treatment side, the raw water side, is a critical path. And I'm talking with Jessica about it. We've got, as part of your agenda item, we put together a scope of work to begin work on the treated water side so that it's forward momentum. It acts as a match towards your grant. We've also discussed on the raw water side.
That's great, but what if the council wanted you to focus on the impoundment stuff? Like, that's where the rub is for me, is
We can do that.
We've been saying that we want to keep on this track with the master plan. Me and Councilor Belisis have been trying to say, why can't we pull the impound out more? Why can't we focus on this? You know, but this process, nothing against you guys, but the process makes it to where we get information for a couple months and then you come in and it seems like we're grilling you and we're not. We're just
And we can't.
do diligence out of it, you know.
We've talked about it. I know you guys have started working on your dredging.
We haven't.
Well, I know it's been in the works as that this is what we have to do. It's critical to get forward.
Yeah, it's not
And then-
happening yet,
And then, well,
but it is something. we need to
all
do.
you have to do for your EOR, all you have to do is say, Civil West, we need assistance with it. And we, under our EOR contract, can begin providing support on that. And one of the reasons you don't see a scope for that raw water side is there's 5 projects. All 5 of those projects are critical. They all have kind of a preliminary evaluation phase, siting of a location potentially for a reservoir. More development around what are the improvements at the Hubbard Creek impoundment, what do they need to be done? As we move through the process, one of my recommendations to Jessica is I just need to know, Cindy, what is your top priority on that? We'll give you a scope of work, and if the Garrison Lake is the one you want to look at first, wonderful. If it's the Hubbard Creek, we just need to know that, and then it's identified, it's built in there. You guys can choose to move forward with it, and we can move forward with you and help you address it. And there's going to be a lot of planning and environmental that has to be addressed. and we have a year before we find out about these grants, it gets you closer to a solution. If those come in, all your expenses, this culvert you're referring to, I don't know if they'd accept it, but I would track the costs associated with that. To me, that's part of your watershed that feeds your raw water. That could potentially, any costs on the planning side could be potentially utilized as a match. So there's ways to do these things and get them addressed, and we can do both of them. And there's full expectation that you guys probably need to be looking at multiple things on the treated water side as well as the raw water side. And what are your top priorities? John gave us the list of the top priority on the treated water side. So the raw water side is the only one that we need to know. Which one do you want to look at?
So let me answer something here. You mentioned Hubbard's Creek and you're concerned that we're not doing what we should be doing, but we are. Because if you read it, we're going to dredge it and we're going to line it and we're going to get our storage back. It's unfeasible and unpractical to raise it like they mentioned in the master plan. Raise it 14 feet. It says right in the master plan.
Well, that was for 28 feet, not the 14.
No, I think it was
the 14 feet in 2005 was feasible, and then when they said 28 feet up on directing,
I never-
this was
It
unfeasible.
was not feasible, but I don't know if it would, the 2005 one, I think is totally, is out of date for many reasons, many assumptions.
Well, the
are flawed.
2014's out of date for climate change.
Yeah,
We didn't do a
yeah.
single thing.
Well,
in
you
that.
know what, FEMA's
Single
gonna say
thing.
that. FEMA's gonna say that.
Well, master plan
FEMA is gonna
for
say
20
that. I've
years.
worked on grants. FEMA's gonna say that. They want current stuff.
Well,
We need to, the
Well,
council needs to direct priorities.
they're
Period.
good for 20 years.
That I
Patient part, I swear.
we have to, first of all, you say, how are we going to fund our 10%? That is like, before you even go on to let's do a giant job, you gotta say, how are we gonna do it? Do you agree that we're gonna go to bond?
I do not.
That's, you don't get to make that decision.
I understand that.
That's the problem,
That's
is
our
we've
goal.
got the tail wagging the horse, the dog here, and we've got to get control of this project. These 6 people are the shot callers.
Right, but
Full stop, that's it.
let me answer that, and I won't be disrespectful.
Yeah.
But what do any of you know about the system?
You come recommend to us and you explain to us what's going
We've been
on.
doing that. We've been doing
Look, that's
this.
not the way, that's not the way. Who gets, if something goes wrong and we don't get any part of this grant,
Any what?
not a nickel out of this grant, which, to be honest, you know how much the grant is nationwide? How much is it?
It's over
Okay,
billion.
right. So it's how many billion? 49 billion or something like that. So we're $70 million. So one of the things grants look at is they look at bang for your buck. How many people can we get water to for $70 million? How many people can we help? What can we do? And you're looking at $70,000 per person. That's a lot of money. And I think we ought to be realistic about, they're gonna look at our master plan, they're gonna say that's old. We need plan B, is what we need to be talking about, plan B. Because there's been, there has to be somebody accountable for this. We are. The council is. And I haven't seen any one of you approve any direction. There hasn't been. There's been no direction. That's how it works, John. I'm not questioning your knowledge. What I'm telling you is who is accountable. If something for the grant, I'm not talking about what your recommendations are. I'm sure that the council would love to hear all of your recommendations, and I probably would just take most of them, or if not all of them, and just move forward with them. But the order of what we're doing is, what good is a bunch of pipes in the ground if you haven't got water?
So, I'm just gonna.
Just say it.
So what we had to do is when we found this out, it was a very short timeline.
Right.
We found out, it was like 2 weeks and then 3 weeks and then go on. And so we actually approached, Monica and I did, we called and talked to the people at FEMA here, the OEM office, and said, this is what we want to do. We want to be able to just, fix the water infrastructure, the infrastructure plus the raw water. What is your recommendation to how we can approach this? Because we knew it was such a big project. They came back to us and said, break it up so that there's something in one of them that excludes it for some reason, that you still have the option for the second. So, because we were excluded at one point over a year ago for lack of maintenance, I think is what they had said. And so what we did, that's why we broke it out. So if there's some random thing that's found in the distribution side, then we can still go to the water. Then we still have the raw water contention or flip. It didn't make a difference at that point, but that's where that's where the decision was made. Not the decision, but that was what FEMA had said to do, to break it out that way. So that we still had an option for one bids on both at that time.
Is that OEM or FEMA?
Yeah, OEM, sorry, OEM.
That's a state agency.
Yeah.
Mandating.
No, I
That's
mean,
a
OEM.
huge difference.
Well, we talked to both of them this morning, actually, but so I don't know if you want to go on, but John Weed had talked to FEMA yesterday.
Well,
So we
and
went through, but
the super simple feedback was he likes the applications. One of my questions that I have, because I know I haven't had direct conversations with anybody, there seems to be a level of concern about liability or responsibility related to these grants.
Yeah.
Until you accept the money and start utilizing the money, what are you liable?
Well, we're liable for your wage, and other projects that have fallen apart and pissed off parts, you name it. There's a lot going on here that,
It's been a big investment.
For the last 3 months.
it really has been. I'm not saying that it's not worth it, and I don't wish it to fail. What I'm saying is are we realistic? We need to be realistic about what we're doing. If it was that easy to throw it together in a couple of months, it would have been done a long time ago. Right. I mean, you're not a grant writer. We don't really have a grant writer. I mean, at the port, we hire professionals to handle our grants, and even they don't get it. And they come in, they tell us, how come we, like some of these questions we heard, well, maybe the culvert would be handled like that. The grant writer tells you that culvert won't be handled, it won't be covered. There's just things that, it scares me that we're putting all our eggs in this basket.
so Monica actually does a lot of grant writing. She's been a big part of this, actually. I mean, a huge part of it. She's with the state, obviously, with the county. And the county actually sent a bunch of employees to a grant writing, I don't remember what type it was, but grant writing school, basically. And I've been working with them, including Summer recently, and she was, read through all of our stuff, and I have all that stuff. So I have been working with them as we go through it. And especially Monica, we've been working hand in hand through the whole process. And same with obviously.
It's just tough because this process was so tight that the council didn't have a chance to weigh in on things.
Right.
And to speak to what you said, John, he spent about 8 to 10 years here. He spent about 8 to 10 years here. I've got about 6 to 8 years. So there is experience with the issues that we have. We might not know how to turn wrenches, but we're very aware of the problems that we have. So.
And I did,
Yes,
I
and
don't,
that's that's to point out that we weren't, it's not towards the crew or the staff at all. We just need to be able to weigh in on this, and it's the process that has made it so we can.
And it's not,
Yeah.
and it's not our process, obviously, either.
Right.
That's,
But
we're kind of.
we've shared everything for the last 3 months, 4 months since we started working on this process. We talked about it in every meeting. We showed the map of what everything was on. So it's not like we haven't shared all this information, the whole.
I feel still to even see where the council has direct.
Yeah. Having conversations.
It's a matter of how you get things done. It's, the council approves a pursuit of a grant, period, first. That's the first thing you do. The second thing you do is you determine which part that you want to prioritize. And then you look at the match and you say, okay, how are we going to come up with that match? 6 of us want to go to bond, or 6 of us don't, or 4 do, where do they come from? All of those things they have to be discussed. We're going to get, my fear is that we get to the end of this road and it blows up in your face.
There is one silver lining, and that's the 12 to 18 months. Like, even though it's backwards, it does give us the opportunity to vet all this stuff, do what we would have liked to do first, and then.
FEMA sees that.
Yeah, that's
They
true.
want shovel-ready projects.
Well, Brett, I actually, in the past 3 months I've been here, I've tried to ask some of these questions, and I have been frustrated with the lack of good responses because it's been going so quickly that we haven't been able to do it. I am heartened by hearing that we can make adjustments later, but I still have some questions that I would like to ask that I haven't gotten answered. And I think there's a lot of really good stuff in here that is based on the water plans, and it is stuff we would like to do. I wish we could adjust it. And I also think I really would have liked to start by really thanking Jessica and Monica and Marlon and John and the public works staff for busting their butts working on this really hard. And so I would say my frustration with the process does not eclipse my tremendous appreciation for all the work you guys have done. But we do need to have our questions answered. We do need to all feel good about it because we're going to be the ones that we need to be talking about this in the community. And if I don't trust it, I don't feel good about it. I mean, how am I going to be able to do that? And some of us have lived in this community for a long time and know this path that Brett has gone down. And that's the thing I've tried to raise too. And I know, Jessica, you've said we're not going to need to do a bond. We can get some other money. And we need to hear more about that. But we've lived through that before. And that's part of what we are trying to, we may not have the water expertise, but we have the community, the community, we are representing the community in this. And so that's an important part of it.
We come up with $7 million without the bond.
So Shayla, you had mentioned at one meeting, we had talked about something with regards to council approval and stuff like that with regards to grants.
The ultimate grant comes back to the council for approval. I mean, that's
So the
bottom
question, excuse me, the question wasn't a legal question. The question is what FEMA sees. That's what this is about, what the grantor wants to see for a successful grant. It's not about what Shayla says or what John says. It's what Brandon says. It's about what the grantor reads. And it's just so incredibly important to get it right, especially with 2 weeks to go. I mean, everybody's, like Ann said, I'm not trying to discount anybody's effort or energy or, that's not the point. The point is that we want a successful grant. And if it's not going to work, we face this exact thing. And it's funny, at the port, we're building a building and we're giving it water, raw water, right? Which one do you do first? And if one fails, do you do the other? Which do you prioritize? We labored over that question. Scenarios it was on and on and on. It's a question that it should be left to the accountable persons to make.
So I think this is kind of something that Monica and I, we did get that question. The way that we talked about it is that basically when we submit both applications, let's say we submit both, FEMA only accepts one. At that point, they made that decision as a priority. So that was what based
So
upon.
FEMA's gonna decide.
No, I'm just saying that, let's say if you sent both a raw water and a distribution site. They say, oh, the distribution site, no, it doesn't qualify, but the raw water will. That's that right there. Then you have to start, make sure we're ready to go through or already are like that. So they kind of made the priority between the two projects at that point. If that makes sense.
Right, but then that would require the raw water to be an acceptable, a grant that they would want to run as well.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Right, so if the distribution I think that there's a lot of this stuff that should have been worked out in time. And I know I'm late to the game. I'm just basing my comments and my observations on the experience and what I've gleaned out of a decade of working on grants. And it's difficult. They're difficult. This is not an easy thing. And there's people who go to university to become grant writers, and they earn a fine wage. There's a reason for that. It's just like John said, what do you know about distributions, what do we know about grant writing? I worry that, I worry, really do. I know that we need water, we need depth of water in that thing. And it's a matter of a permit that can take years. And we haven't started it. Years.
Well,
And I've dealt with NIMS.
I hear you. I mean, to just touch on a couple little quick items. I mean, one thing that I want to point out is I know Jessica has been working on the state level side. They've been doing reviews. So this isn't just been getting pulled together by the 4 or 5 people that are here on this phone call. I mean, we have had it reviewed, comments, feedbacks from those individuals that are associated with the grant program and making sure that because we don't submit it directly, it has to go to the state level. The state has to feel that it meets the criteria and then they submit it on. So it's not just the 4 or 5 people that have jumped on it over the past couple months to get it together. There's been close coordination. So, I mean, they're more there involved. I also love the fact that you pointed out earlier that we don't want to put all of our eggs in one basket. I wholeheartedly agree. This is a wonderful package that I don't see other funding agencies. If you've been doing grants, have you seen very many that are 90, 10?
This is an exceptional.
Yeah, and so.
It's worth going after, but keep in mind, it's a program.
Mm-hmm.
And there are 330 million Americans, and a lot of them could use some.
Oh, yeah.
So.
Yep.
That's why the price tag. Sometimes a grant writer, oftentimes, or an agency, or even a government office you call Mercury, they're going to tell you, go big. That's how you do it. Go big. That's not always successful.
No, it's not.
Big is not always successful. And we recently experienced a failure in a grant that was probably would have made it at 5 million, but we turned the ask into nearly 20 because of the recommendation of a senator, and it just didn't happen. So you end up spinning your wheels for 2 years, and then you try again. Well, that impound doesn't come 2 years. And it sounds like we're not willing to put our limited resources that we have now into dredging. Well, first of all, we don't have a permit, which I don't even want to. It's horrifying that we haven't applied for that. It's been years.
And we were told all last year that we were going to be dredging this last fall. So
When we talked to them, said it was going to take and then you had looked into it. Do you remember? Up to a year.
I actually just talked to the gentleman a couple of days ago at the Army Corps, and he said if we were in an emergency, we could possibly move it in 6 to 8 months.
Yeah, I asked him at one point, and I remember, I think it was, I'm trying to remember what he had said, but it was something more like dredge now, ask for forgiveness later.
Are we not in an emergency state?
He had talked about
We're in
that.
an emergency state.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Have the Fish and U.S. Fish and Wildlife see it.
Yeah.
Especially now that it's recorded.
No, there's always something.
I would report it if we were gonna do that. We have to do things the right way, you guys. I mean, let's just do it the right way.
Some guy just left the mining dredge in the impound. I don't know why.
I just want to know if we're going to be proceeding with this dredge.
Yes, and I talked to.
Yeah. But are we going to be waiting to see if we get the grant?
No.
No, and then this goes back down to not putting all your eggs in one basket. You mentioned earlier shovel-ready projects. You guys have put away money for water infrastructure. You have needs. There are critical treated water side issues, pipelines, storage. There are also raw water, your impound, your pump station there, other things. Those are all things that you guys have funds put aside for that you can move forward with. You can create those shovel-ready projects, and you can start applying for. My recommendation would be to track and monitor state level opportunities for funding. Go after those, but also go after federal as those projects are prepared and ready to go. The timing of everything coming together may work out well if it's a year to a year and a half by the time the designs are done. The treated or the raw water side, yes, permitting can take a long time and there's environmental issues. So there's a longer lead time on that. The treated water side, it's a lot faster process to establish, hey, we need a reservoir, we need these pipelines fixed, we got to stop the leaking and then take the load down off the plant a little bit so that it can actually meet our water needs. So over the next year, year and a half, my recommendation is, and it has been since day one, and even before then, was move forward, get some shovel-ready projects. There's lots of funding opportunities coming out, and there's potentially going to continue to be for the foreseeable future. Get those shovel-ready projects ready to go after them. If this grant does come in, submit a great application, and we're getting good feedback that from the state level, they like the application. Submit on it. If we get it, you now have other projects and other funding in place to help pay for it. If it happens to be state level, you can use that to a match. There goes to that 10%.
Can you? Does not-
Yes, as long as it's not construction. Design is all construction. You can't go to construction.
Right.
You can't use construction pre-award as a match. Post-award, you can. So, I mean, there's ways to play that out.
I mean, how much of that actually is that can be matched?
What, I'm not certain if I'm following.
Of our 7 million, if we do a $70 million bill, so how much of that 7 million couldn't be state matched?
All of
It could be all matched.
Basically,
They should all be matched.
Yep,
as long as it's not federal. because you
cannot
can
be
only-
federal money.
you can
Right.
only do State money
for
to-
federal, right.
yeah.
Well, and the other aspect of it is they don't allow for construction pre-award. They did not exclude it post-award. So even as you're going through the project, if you go after additional funding sources, even after the award and you utilize that, you can do that. I mean, there's other programs. I believe Safe Routes to School has a similar thing where they don't care where the match comes from. You just need to hit their match rate. So it's a similar scenario. So that $7 million, there is a pathway to be able to help cover it. The city's put away a chunk of change to be able to move towards it. I also recommend, you'll see in the scope of work that's in there, one of the last items is funding sources. We do help a lot of people with funding applications, especially on a state level with USDA, CDBG, OHA. I mean, there are other programs that we recommend that you continue to look at, monitor, and then if additional funding opportunities come up, go after them. And so you're positioning yourself. You're honestly, we could almost say, let's pretend there is no grant. All we're talking about is we want to get you guys positioned to be able to be in that shovel-ready, high-scoring position so that you can get those awards. So that's what you're focused on. And then if this big grant happens to come in, now you're being able to pay for the big grants match with the other work that you're already doing.
The problem that I see there is that the rush, we're trying, rushing to get the big grant.
And then I don't disagree. It has been a tight timeline. One of the things that I appreciate is the feedback that we have been receiving. It's not been all stars and you guys are amazing. It's, hey, this needs to be reworked. We need to adjust this. We need to focus this.
But
Hey,
they looked at it once, right? It
Oh,
went in
no,
on the
they-
19th of December.
Oh, no, they looked at it, I think we've had, oh my gosh, 8, 9 plus times.
But we haven't looked at it. We haven't gotten a chance to see the
No.
raw water part of it at all yet. And
And that's the weird part of it, if other entities can see it, like, because we were kind of said, oh, well, until the grant application is done, we can't print it out, so
Because
what
I have to
information
submit
will
it.
they get?
So the only information that gains, I have to submit it and I lose access to it. So, and, yeah, Tom helped me. So
Maybe
when
you didn't maybe I misphrased the question. How, if we're sharing this information with the state so they can review the application, why couldn't the council be
Because
privy
I-
to that?
that's-
Because they're looking on that website,
Yeah,
like
because
that
they
where
have-
the form is getting filled
Yeah.
out.
Because I have to submit it through this little portal on that website.
No, I know,
And then I
I know,
lose
the portal,
access to it. So I hate that part. 'cause
Well,
I
Is
it
that-
blows my mind that you can't print
Not
it.
allowed?
That's the whole
Are
reason
you
that
not
this is a
allowed
problem.
to make copies of it?
No, they can't print until you fill out the whole application on web.gov, you can't print it out.
Well, I'm saying, can you
I
screenshot each
started to do
individual?
screenshots,
yeah.
and it was like 75K, and I have
Oh,
them.
yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's like,
Hard to
it's
see.
like- yeah, you literally have, and then part of it, it's a scroll bar, so you have 8,000 characters, but they only show like 3 lines.
Oh, yeah.
So it's like, okay. It's a lot of work.
Yeah, I'll bet.
You know, so it's been a fight.
So I'm thinking of shovel-ready project. Is there any merit into us doubling down and pursuing these meters that read on either side of the meters so that we can like narrow down to like?
I say you continue to move forward on that, and I've talked to Jessica, make sure you're tracking any and all expenses related to that. Find out about the timing around when will all the meters be ready? And if you can coordinate and schedule that, I mean, maybe they've got enough meters sitting there, but I know everybody's having material issues. It might be 6 to 9 months before they're even ready to even come out and start installing.
It's a good sign they called though.
Yeah, no, it should.
Well, and-
No, but that's what I mean. They don't come knocking on doors unless they want.
So it sounds like they have that stuff,
Oh, that's great.
but how do we take that out of the brick grant then? Do we
Yeah,
take that
so
grant?
it's a little late. I mean, we can take it out, if we take it out today, but basically that was it. But then, you know what, to be honest, then we just move those funds and have a conversation with John at OEM. But the thing, because we did
Well-
originally put the full thing actually as pre-award for all of the meters.
But you might not have to pay the meter thing for quite some time.
Well,
I don't know how long.
Yeah.
You know, by the time the project's done and everything.
Or we lease them till we get to that point and say how much to buy them off.
Well,
and
that's right.
What that number is.
So the last time that we did this, there was Maine, there was identified, and I think it was Dyer, and to the west, to Glen Dyer, but it was, there was certain points along the way that would be very, very helpful to have metered. I'm sure you know probably where they
It's
are.
number 1 on the master plan to replace all the meters.
Well, that was all the
Number
meters,
one.
but
You're talking mainline.
because then you can kind of gather where.
Well, and that's the merit of being on both sides, is because between this meter and this meter, if the pressure zone is different, then you'll know, I got to leave between here and here. So it's better than having the one meter on the, like, when we were talking that way, it was for
This
these
is,
both.
this is better.
Like, we didn't have to read on both
On
three
both.
options. And we only had the meter replacement, not the full drain yet, so.
And-
Like,
And I think the
that
other
one,
thing-
well, we accept.
No,
We couldn't afford, so all we could afford to do was get the meters in the ground at the time. We were buying the cheapest system, which was a touch system. They had to go and touch a meter with a wand or something. We didn't get to even getting it sent to the servers in the city or anything, I don't
And it
believe.
didn't read leaks.
Because that was where the cost was on those meters. It was huge.
We had like $600,000 or something, wasn't it?
I think it was 400.
220, that covers meters plus like 40, but then we were 150 short on that.
Almost
So,
double.
part that- yeah,
I guess it
the-
didn't- I guess I didn't know.
And that's the good thing with these meters too, is we'll be able to detect sooner that if there's a leak. within
I
a
guess my
house.
point is to say that should be part of the discussion, is moving forward with identify a priority that isn't part of this $70 million thing, and simultaneously pursue those things.
I think we can pursue the meters.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I see that.
There's certain, because what happens is you get all, it's like playing the lottery. You know, you've already got that spent, you know what you're gonna do, this and that, and then you don't win, and then there you are, you know, there you are. You don't wanna be there without something already in the works, that you know.
Well, I think we're all on the same page about that. We have to act like
Right.
this isn't gonna happen. And on the other end of it, it's like, oh, well, we didn't have to spend that $200,000, but it's like, well, the 70 million makes up for it, and we were, you know, going in the right direction.
To talk about what you were
I-
just mentioning there about authorization to move forward, that's part of, honestly, what my understanding of this meeting was we were gonna talk about the priority list that John put together and said the priority 1 projects on the treated water cycle, which includes the meters. that's included in there. You guys have been handling that, so our support, very minimal to none, which is fine. That's the treated water side proposal of the feedback that I received from the city staff is that these are the ones that we think are the critical projects that need to be done. That was my question. What needs to be included? What is critical for you guys to get addressed? Number one, top priority projects. That's what's in that scope of work. Now, it has been a short timeline and it's been a crazy timeline. So there is the raw water side. We've already talked about it. We know that there needs to be forward momentum on the dredge permit. So one of the things I'd love to know of, okay, here's the list that the city staff has recommended. I've put together based off of the costs from the master plan being updated. Here's the cost to provide you support on that. It's billed as the time and material not to exceed. If we don't do anything on the meter side, we don't bill you on it. So we help you on that side. I'd also love to leave the meeting night with an understanding, okay, yes, we're going to move forward on the dredging. And my recommendation to Jessica was, we know that's a top priority. We're your EOR, we've been selected. We don't have to do a dedicated scope for that. We can say, Civil West, Marlin, I need your help on this. Help us get this moving forward. We can do that. In addition to that, of those 5 projects that are listed in the raw water side, what's your top priority? Is it the Hubbard Creek improvements? Is it the Garrison Lake as a secondary water source? Is it an additional raw water storage facility? They all have value.
Right.
And that's what I need to know from you guys. Once I know what you tell me it is, then I prepare a scope for that, and then that comes back to you.
And that's the disconnect, right?
Yeah,
Because that's what we've been waiting to hear. Like that's what.
And all I need to know is, and honestly, the cost that it is for us to do it, I'm not coming up with anything crazy. The costs that are presented in those cost estimates, there's a line down there that says engineering. Engineering is traditionally 20% of the overall construction cost. That covers construction-based support as well as design. Half of that engineering is design phase. I don't want to put a scope together for you guys to even touch the construction phase at this point. We're not there yet. And honestly, I think those costs may come down. And so as we get done with design, what I like to do is, here's the design costs. We get the design done. We have new costs. I honestly think they're going to go down over the next couple of years. Kind of hit a peak, I think, and hopefully they come down. The construction phase, there'll be a separate scope, and that will be discussed at that point in time because we'll have a better understanding of what's included, what's not included, because that might change.
I have a few questions. We're kind of getting into another agenda item.
Right back to you, but I do need a motion to extend.
I make a motion to extend the meeting.
Oh, what? That's new. I vote no, absolutely.
Well, hold on.
I had a motion and a second. You have a motion and a second from Wynn.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. You don't make it. Okay, we're kind of getting on to another agenda item, which is the scope of work. But I have a question about the application first, and maybe to talk a little bit about one thing I think that, we're getting here is that we feel like we're a little bit in the dark about how all this is going to come together in the future. Like I'm seeing this one scope of work, but we don't see a scope of work for the raw water. Some of us feel like the fact that we've got about this much water in our reservoir is actually really scary. And I think that's part of why we're running our water plant so hard too, is because it's turbid and we just have we have that problem to solve is a high priority too. So it sort of seems like we've got 2 higher priority things in each part of these grants, like the meters and the dredging. So we need to envision how this is all going to come forward. And so, seeing that we've got this scope of work, you're going to go off and do all that engineering. I mean, it helps me to understand that John and this company can be working on the meters. That's not you. Like, when is the raw water part going to happen? I was under the impression that the dredging permit, what Justin was saying, is part of the BRIC grant. So then, like when I don't see the raw water thing in here, I'm thinking, okay, are we gonna then wait for the raw water part of this to do the, we don't know what's happening. And so I don't feel like there's a clear path forward that I feel confident about.
What I'd say to that is I would love to leave tonight with that understanding. I mean, I understand the treated water side is a little simpler. Staff was able to say, here's what we want to do. The raw water is more complicated. There's multiple things that are an issue, and there's a couple different ways to deal with it. Adding additional raw water storage so that during the wetter season of the year, you can capture and store raw water so that when you have an event that causes issues with your water quality at your source, you still have a source to draw from. So there's different things to do. So the goal for me was council has provided recommendations to me to say, this is what we see on the raw water side. I've talked with Jessica and she said, we need to start working on the dredging permit. So we're working on both sides. My question to you is okay, you should honestly don't put all your eggs in one basket. What's your top priority on the raw waters? There's 5 projects. All you have to do is say, Marlon, we want to do the dredging and we want to look at the raw water reservoir. And those are our top 2 raw water ones. That's all I need to know, and then I give you the exact same thing.
That's it.
No, I mean, and so, like, by consensus, is everybody comfortable with that? Not to make a quick decision, but it's not quick, because we've been talking about this for quite a while.
Yeah, I mean, I think so.
It should happen as soon as it possible.
So, well,
Especially if
the improvement we're going after regardless, like, we might have to cut that out, and I don't know if we can do it this meeting, but we need all the help we can get on the permit. And any help we can do to get that, I would be willing to kick some money out to get, because it doesn't matter if we get the brick grant or not, we're still gonna need that permit.
And the fish ladder done, I mean, there's certain things.
Right, no, and that, yeah, that's the kind of
So all that stuff.
surveying the impact, dredging is obviously key, but if we get that dam fixed and the fish ladder in, that might gain us a lot. No,
But that's even bigger than, I mean.
I just meant from the water loss.
We won't give you more storage.
No, but we won't have.
But we'll fix the leak. We have to fix the leak anyway, right?
You Get the open rope, like when you use on the ship.
So you're saying we're not gonna gain any storage from dredging?
No.
Oh,
Replacing the dam.
okay. So again, I've said this and said this and said this. Without water in that reservoir, meters don't mean a thing.
Absolutely.
We've been running with these old meters for years. It's not gonna kill us to wait 12 months on these meters. That's my personal opinion. Especially, well, they can if we can afford them, but if we can't, dredging is the #1 thing we need to do, because without water in that reservoir, the meters don't mean a thing. There'll be things that kids play with in the road. They'll be throwing them in the road,
And that's-
whoever's left living here.
That's your answer, I think, Marlon, is we want to focus on the Hubbard Creek impound to get the most storage we can with what we have and moving forward. And I think that'll take a lot of the concern that all of us have.
That's a concern.
Being the layman we are, it's hard to get over if we don't have the water, so.
It's for the future too, like we're building out 50 years here or whatever. I mean, climate change has been forecasted and that's the offshore wind and stuff, that's.
Is
related
D
to-
Street
that's
still an
related
option
to
for raw
less-
water?
less rainfall. I mean, all of it is.
I thought I saw
One of the
that.
things to follow up on that, Brett, is, I mean, that's why I think part of the problem of our water plants being so old is I don't think they take that seriously in terms of water availability.
The federal
or in
government
terms of
and the
everything.
military and everybody on the planet thinks it's real.
No, I know, but
And
I'm
I'm just saying that
Yeah.
are we thinking in those terms?
that's,
Is that part of it might be that the master plan would suggest a different route. I don't know if
and that's the problem. I mean, I
What
asked
we
that
know
question
today.
earlier and it sort of sounds like we're tied to what's in the master plans, even though they're old.
the 2014 master plan is 8 years old. And they live for, but they want, I mean, what they want, what's attractive.
Well-
They're like 5.
What I would do and recommend, here's, I'll kind of summarize short little blurb here. The feedback that we've received on the grants has been positive. I would recommend that you move forward with those grants. Until you hear from them and accept an award, you don't know if there's going to be a huge boon with a win of a 90%, 10% match. You don't know that. Meanwhile, you should be moving forward and being proactive. You have funds saved up. It sounds like raw water storage, Hubbard Creek needs to be a priority. I also think and recommend this to every community I work with. You should also do pipeline projects and just fix those problems. Your staff runs around poking holes and fixing stuff. You're losing water, you're spending money, and it's being wasted. So do both. That's not a hard thing to do. Both those, as far as the planning aspects of them, are a value towards the BRIC grants. They also position you to get shovel-ready projects. So then we can also monitor over the next year, year and a half, what other opportunities are out there for funding. Go after them.
It's the transmission line for from the impound of the.
Yep, it's in there.
That might help. Get a lot more storage too.
Talking about meters, I get 100%.
Yeah, I'm not against meters.
Right, but I'm thinking we can do both, because if we do the lease option, we're paying $3,000 a month basically. But I think we're gonna gain that revenue real easy. We start pulling the meters out, we got 5 million miles on. I think it's gonna kind of balance us out. And in a year from now, we'll get the grant, great, we pay them off, or we'll buy them out, or.
Those are all questions we have to ask.
Yeah, it's super important. I think we kind of move forward, like, this isn't gonna happen in business as usual.
Yeah.
Because anything we gain is a gain. And I feel a lot better in the last half an hour about knowing that we have a little more flexibility.
Yeah,
That we
well,
can, have, steer. Because I think that was kind of the road too. It's like, the council, we should have.
Well, one other thing that I haven't brought up that I would potentially recommend, and it's not uncommon, I see it all the time on wastewater master plans as well as water master plans. As you're moving through this next year, we're having some great dialogue. Are things correctly identified? And if they're not, it's easy to do an amendment or an update to an existing master plan, which then brings that up to a more current timeline and timetable that directly reflects the council's concerns and the staff's concerns around the water system and even the wastewater infrastructure. I mean, we do those all the time to help people refocus, because the original master plan that was 18 years old said that we needed to do, a new digester. Well, there's other ways to deal with that on the wastewater side. And so we do a master plan update or amendment, and then we look at other alternatives, maybe there's new infrastructure, new technology out there, pull that in, do those evaluations, and now it's a part of your plan, it's been validated. And then you can keep in mind, if that BRIC grant comes in, do a scope of change. I mean,
I asked Jessica about that after the last meeting, and she said, well, we probably won't want to do that because you're going to be busy working on the other thing.
Well,
so
everything that's identified, well, a master plan amendment or modification, it's depending on what it encompasses, isn't a major impact. The planning document is there, so we need to know what are you wanting to look at, and then we would put a scope together and say, here's what it's going to take to do that. We have the capacity. So we've got 4 offices, 30-some employees. We have the ability. Actually, I brought a new employee with us, Brian here. We just hired him back in January 1.
Well, he's gonna quit.
We're always looking for ways. We want to help the communities that we're a part of. We live in and around you guys. We want to make sure that things are moving forward. If a master plan amendment or modification or update is needed, let's talk about it. We can pull that in. Most of the projects that were identified by the city that are in the scope of work, most of 9 out of the 11 projects are pipeline. They are not heavy lifts. They're relatively easy to put together and will give you shovel-ready projects. One of the projects in there is the meter replacement. The other one is improvements at the treatment. So there's
So how do we get to have these conversations? I mean, I've been asking, could we get together and meet with you, John? And you're always so busy running around fixing everything. We don't get a chance to have that conversation. I mean, how do we get a chance to tap your knowledge and ask our questions and come up with these priorities? And yours.
Well, one thing I would throw out there is we are your DOR. My contact information, my business card's on my cell phone.
But I mean, as a council, I appreciate that. I think getting us all on the same page is a really cool and important
Cumbersome
thing.
part of government though is the chain of command, so we would get that through Jessica and she would get that through John. Obviously, we've been a little understaffed, but that is how that should work, and that's where we need to get back to the pointed meetings of, to give us the opportunity to weigh in on these things. Because I know if we streamline that, then we won't have as, we won't be taking your time, on the daily, trying to get these answers that we need, and we deserve it too. It's just, so.
So really quickly, let's go back to the meters, just so I can know. Because he said that we're gonna wait till we talk to him. We're not gonna move forward with what John just
So
told
we
us.
are.
We're gonna talk to these guys as soon as possible. And if they give us a go, we could move forward with that.
Well, and I would even say, if your concerns around your meter and they're bad, as they are, move forward with it.
Yeah.
I mean,
and that's-
it's listed in the project. You can't use construction funds for match, but some of the other planning funds, maybe you can utilize.
This is just a lease agreement. There's no.
Yeah, I know, that's what I'm trying to say. I want to.
Buy them with the brick.
That's actually, we physically had this question with John, because we asked that, because we said, they're not digging, they're not, doing any ground disturbance, they're not doing, and he went back, if I remember correctly, actually to his superiors and talked to them, and they had said that it's still constituted as a construction project,
Okay.
because,
Infrastructure.
yes, exactly. So I understand, but that's what we were told.
But
by
there-
that.
even if you don't pull in the full value, there's a portion of it you may be able to. Because my whole point is let's be as creative as possible. That 10%, if the grants come in, the brick grants come in, I would love to try to help you find as many funding options that pull money in and help pay for it, so that you guys don't have to go after a bond.
And some of these things too, like I know that we've talked about too, is, the administration costs that are in here, all those things. As, we've been going through this process, especially with, all these things, the administration costs cover, like, are our salaries. When I've been working on this with Monica, we've been keeping track of our hours and John, all those things. So all those things are covered within the grant application also. So as the meters are being worked on, the hours that he's doing and those items towards it can be used as match funds, but just technically not.
I know I've asked this question before, but I need a little clarity. All along the way, we've known that the master plan says that this master plan replaces 30% of the water system, or whatever, maybe it was 43, but not a full replacement. But we have 27 million on priority 3, 10 on priority 1, and 9 on priority 2. So how, it's just sections of priority, like these are the worst sections of the water line that we've identified, which makes it,
Priority one.
Priority.
Yeah, and that's how we were listed in the master plan as priority 1, versus priority 2 was priority.
those lines as well. So it just drops down the ladder.
It's right from the master plan, but what I would also say to it is it's over a period of time, where another water line becomes a critical issue.
Well, and that's what's wrapped, like, we spent 50 grand to get the master plan updated in 2015. But yet we have millions and millions of dollars in projects that are off the 2005 master plan. So how is that 2005 master plan still valid, since we updated it and those projects were dropped off?
2005, it's still within the 20-year utilization. I didn't, and I'll be honest with you, I didn't create the initial structure of the projects. I took that information and then was asked to, hey, we need to update the costs associated with these. So that's where I came in with, hey, Marlon, that's in the West, we need your help. Here is our initial applications that were submitted. We need this information updated. We need to actually put the full applications together now because we've gotten feedback. And so now that's where I came in.
No, we grabbed from the master plan and then the additional 3 projects, I think, were just because we had overestimated, I think. if I
Which
remember
3
correctly.
projects were those?
The last ones on the plan, those 2005 ones. Because when we did the initial update of funding, all we did is grab the inflation calculator, because we only had less than 10 days to put it all together. And we grabbed the inflation calculator, just did it and got those numbers in there.
And
So
we
then
did,
there's-
we did drop the China Mountain Road extension $1.
And actually what's hilarious is.
You did.
Drop
Oh,
that.
yeah.
Yeah, but that was dropped out at the beginning. We still have 4 of them that are like 20 million. But may I ask a question about that part? Can I ask a part?
That's what's so funny is actually we just had someone that wanted to, was upset that we were doing the
Right, no,
property.
But
Well,
my point would be is that as a citizen, that's a big chunk of change that I'm paying to get lines out to the urban growth boundary when there's lines in the city around the corner that aren't getting service, and that just doesn't sit right.
Yeah, that
I know the good safe process, blah, 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 but it just doesn't.
I agree with that. And I'd like to ask a question about this too, which is that I'm interested to hear that you weren't in on this part of it because, and maybe you can offer insight on this, John. I've been trying to get a straight answer, which is when I went back and read the 2005 master plan, these projects that are added at the end, the priority 3 that are from the 2005 plan, are contingent on a model that requires a dam that's elevated by 14 feet and 2 additional water tanks on Hensley Hill. And those are not things that are in our plan. So I have this feeling like we're putting this thing out that's not really, like it's not going to work. Or I'd like to ask, will it work? Because we're not increasing our water in the system to go out that far. I mean, the model says you have to add the dam up to 14 feet and add these other 2 things for the water pressure to work out in all these extended areas.
And I
So-
don't, without going back and actually reviewing, I know there's multiple booster pump stations included in numerous water line projects. There's also additional water reservoirs. Now, do the hydraulics work? I have not gone back and reviewed that. That wasn't part of, I mean, I'm working from the information
Yeah.
that I have. But it's one of those ones. It's listed in the master plan. It was listed in the application. I can't answer that question without going back and actually running the model. I don't have the model in front of me, so my question is there are booster pump stations in there. So
Have we not asked the question? Why haven't we asked it a couple months ago?
Well, I have not, I tried to ask this question, or I asked this question over email. I didn't get a chance to ask this at the last meeting because hadn't read the 2005 water master plan. John, you said you have an answer for this question, were you saying?
To which question?
To the question about how the water pressure can go to Cedar Terrace and out to Garrison without
Without
increasing
booster
our,
stations, it will.
And that was at the end of the day for capacity.
It was,
Yeah.
that was for emergency management, if I remember correctly, for Monica. It was to better our grant application by providing emergency management for wildfires. So personal opinion, I wouldn't run into the urban growth boundary at this point. Although that is our growth zone as we grow as a city. So it doesn't hurt to have some extensions started in the urban growth boundary. Look at the town right now, go up on Vista. There's a dozen lots that are cleared and getting ready to be built on. The town is growing. in the urban growth boundary.
Largest urban growth boundary.
We would put a T in at the end of the line and the developer would build to us.
Right. And we had a guy in the office that's doing 7 lots and he wants to do that.
Yeah.
And we told him, sorry, can't get you water. Not up there.
And that's because we don't have enough water in town, not because we don't have new lines going into
Well, that's the thing it gets back to. I wonder about like our water availability. That model is to serve a population of 5,000, which is 5 times the one we currently have, or maybe more. So
Right.
that's like a big decision policy wise. That's not just like, oh, let's sign up and do this. We're like, I don't think, anyway.
We do have valves, so we may run the lines and leave valves closed until we have what we need to make it work, correct?
Which would require a vote of the people.
Oh, I'm sure.
Within the city and in the urban growth boundary.
No, it wouldn't, because if they're not going to do a bond, there would never be a vote. It would just happen.
No.
How would it be?
I believe that the people in the urban growth boundary have to vote to join the city.
Oh, to annex.
And you're asking them to buy into a bunch of debt. It's already an incredibly high water bill, in my opinion, It depends on how many kids you have, I guess.
We've got close to 400 lots.
But I mean, I'm just saying, building out, to me, like what John said, you put a valve on it or something, maybe that's good, maybe it's to sweeten up the deal or whatever, but our strategic plan for the city, it guides us to build from the center of town out.
And there's like 400 lots that aren't developed yet.
In our town.
In the city
That's
limits.
what I'm saying, and so it kind of runs counter to what our plan is to develop the urban growth boundary prior to building out what we have in town. It was always intended to start, for whatever reason, that's what the master plan called. I think it had to do with,
Well,
you don't want I don't know, that's what.
Well, it's better for our tax base, it's better for community vitality.
I wasn't
it's
even gonna
better
go
for-
into the.
Yeah.
Opinion,
Yeah.
I think the biggest thing too is we have to remember is that we don't have to use the funds for, when we get them. So let's say we get to priority 2 and we're saying, okay, that's it. We can say we're done. We can let people that we're done. So we don't necessarily have to use those funds. And at that point, we're only on the hook for the 10% of whatever we use.
Or request a change of scope
Yes.
to additional lines that are much more important,
Inside.
higher priority within
our city.
the area we're working.
The flexibility is fabulous here.
It is.
I have not been involved with grants that have been so flexible. And I'm still like kind of taken aback by the idea that it is this flexible. So I throwing a lot of trust out here because they are usually not, period, not. That's been some of my concern. The rigidity of this type of thing is incredible. So I'm actually a little bit more comfortable than I was for sure, And again, that's been from outside looking in. I haven't been privileged to a lot of the conversations, but it sounds to me also like not much of the council has been.
I was gonna say, there haven't been too many.
Keep in mind too, the reason that we're qualified for that 10%, it's usually not a 10% match. The only reason we qualify is because we have such a low income.
I'm the one that got the grant to get that fund, that
Yes.
study funded.
So
In fact, I called Wild Rivers Coast and got Jim Saley to fund that thing. How many years ago was that? 6 years ago that we started that? So yeah, that's a very useful tool.
Yeah.
In fact, I don't think, did we even know we had it here a couple years ago? I read something where we were talking about doing one and yeah, that's great. No, it's a fabulous tool. You can do a lot with that low income piece.
So was it Monica and you that pulled out the cards from 2005?
No, because I didn't even know that 2005 I was actually texting Monica and asked her to send me our initial application because I didn't bring it here with me. It's sitting on my computer.
But how did we pull those sections out?
That's what I think that.
When, in the initial inquiry application, it listed in there a series of projects, expansion and service into the urban growth map.
Right.
And that's what that may not be the exact word, but that is what it indicated.
To fire
In the
2005.
In the 2014, there is no projects identified for expansion out into the urban growth boundary. So.
There was some growing pain and a lot of ideals, and some identification of who we are and what we want to be. Contributed to that, I think.
Fire that we had this summer that, we had 2 lots of acres of watershed, and maybe we don't have the height, we didn't have those options up there. Maybe, I obviously don't know, but if we did, maybe we wouldn't have lost.
Well, you can't put like fire hydrants out until like all the urban, rural areas around Curry County to stop fires. I mean, it's kind of.
I'll throw this out there to kind of wrap it back over to the initial discussion of the BRIC grant. I mean,
Oh, is that what we were talking
well,
about?
that's what we were talking about. So, I mean, to me, there's a value in moving forward. I would recommend it. Is the scope that is identified in every single project in there perfect? Probably not. Would it be bad if we were solved? Probably not. Remember, put the best application forward. We've done in a short time period, I believe, a good job pulling an application together. We've gotten great feedback from state representatives who are the ones that then put them into a package because they think it's a good application and submit it onto the fence. So I believe there's value in moving that forward. We're going to, in either side, we're looking at the most critical in-town infrastructure first. That's what we're dealing with. As we move through the projects and wait to hear on the BRIC grant, you guys should be moving forward with those shovel-ready projects. Find other avenues, other funding sources. Use those to leverage against that BRIC grant match. In the event the BRIC grant comes in, or both come in, or one comes in, then you know, okay, so now we need to focus over here. Well, you know what? We've had more issues up at the reservoir, the raw water side. Maybe that wasn't the one that got awarded. Well, the city internal infrastructure, get that stuff dealt with. There is a significant amount of money there. If there's a more critical need, put in a change request to the funding agency. It's still a funded water system project. It's identified in the water system. Submit it and change in focus. And it
seems like we have more flexibility tonight than we did last month, which is awesome.
Well, there's always been a change in scope, and I mean, I worked with other funding in USDA, and that's why a lot of the applications that I've done with USDA, we try to make a broad application and include a lot of items. We honestly don't anticipate to actually be able to build and do all of this. The reason why we do that is if we hit a time period when costs are down and we end up with extra funding, it's really easy to say, hey, we have extra funds. In that initial funding application, we identified these projects or this planning document as a source for information. We would like to do that. So it creates a pathway to pull in more work if there's funds left over. It's wonderful to be able to do that. It's very similar on this based on everything that we've received feedback on and read. And it's not uncommon to be able to pull in and refocus. I don't typically see going a completely different direction. I wouldn't ask them to change and add City Hall to it. To me, that doesn't fit. But I mean, that would be my take as we wrap back around to the BRIC grant. I see value. I think we've gotten great feedback. I think there's some flexibility that over the next year and a half, you can forge forward as a community and put yourself in the best position possible to start addressing issues. And then if it does come in, then you're getting a 90-10 grant to match. That's unheard of. Wonderful. Boom, great. If you don't get it, you have shovel-ready projects. And then you can start using your funds and going out and those other funding agencies to deal with these items. So to me, it's a win-win-win for the community to move forward. As it relates to the scope of work, you guys have the scope of work. I hear you. We've already talked on the dredging. I know that's a high priority. And what is of the 5 raw water projects that are listed in the BRIC grant? What's your top priority? I threw out there the Hubbard Creek, or there's a secondary water reservoir to just store 1 million gallons of raw water.
Yeah, whatever, to be,
I mean,
yeah, but we need more capacity is what our goal is.
What is your, because it would probably be faster on the permitting side to be able to build a raw water reservoir than try to expand the capacity and get through all the permitting processes at the existing impact.
You mean the dredging?
The dredging and actually getting it all done, and because there's also the fish ladder and all that other stuff is a part of that. So you have to, any improvements out there, if I'm not mistaken, any improvements to the facility also trips the requirement to move forward on the fish ladder, isn't it?
I'm pretty sure.
I thought the dredging was separate.
It might be, and that's something that we need to identify. But that's what I'd love to hear from you guys. I think there's value in moving forward on both fronts. It can be done on both fronts. We know from John and Jessica what are the top priorities on the treated water side. We know one of the tasks on the raw water side. The Hubbard Creek dredging. Is it that whole project that's the top priority, or is it one of the other, the raw water reservoir?
Well, if we have that 1 million gallon tank on the top of Dee Dee Street, that's arguably is advantageous for us. Like, we want twice as much water. So that, we want to focus on that, and from what, as far as I can read, in-town projects, like focus on our.
The scope of work, every single one of them are in-town projects. And they're all, and correct me if I'm wrong, John, they're all your biggest concerns.
And I'm just reiterating it to the community too, so they know that our focus is.
And they are, they're in-town projects. You don't even get out to the perimeter until you get really into that phase 3, which is down the road.
Out of curiosity, how much, I know that there's a lot of raw water stuff with the priorities, but how much would it be to extend, if we did extend those lines out for fire hydrants? 600, right?
I have to look for sure. I don't remember off the top of my head.
3 or 4 of them, they're long water.
Yeah, no, that's, I mean, it's a lot of in-town money. Unless we want to like just bump it up to 12 inch and use that for storage.
Like the,
So,
who's actually a plan? That was a plan.
I love it. So,
I think the bottom line, Marlon, is that we are all very supportive of needing to fix our water system. And we just want to get clear on the priorities, which this has been a really helpful conversation. So I think we can probably move on.
I feel a lot better than I thought I would at the end of this portion.
Me too.
I might be because I'm getting doozy to say 20.
And I just say that, and she had requested a copy of the application. So today, after we had our thing with John, there's some just little tweaks that we do have to do. Like I said, when I told her, as soon as those tweaks are done, we'll tweak up the application that I have out there on a Word document and then make sure it's ready to go again. Because then it's actually, there you go.
well, and to close it out from my side, I'm always available. So, we're your EOR. We've been your EOR for a while. I've seen you a few times. I don't like to rattle chains and poke and prod, but I am a resource to you. So don't hesitate. If the council has some topics they want to discuss, let me know.
Well, are we clear on the Hubbard Creek dredging?
Well, that's the thing that we need to clarify, because we need to tell our engineer of record that we want him to help us pursue the dredging permit.
So that's what, so.
Right.
I understand. It would be a vote. Do that.
Well, it could be water storage, so if, you know, like you mentioned, the 1 million gallon tank, whatever puts water in the system faster is
Well,
what we need, really.
and that ball is rolling, so our job right now is to try to refine it as much in this next 12 months and get as many projects shovel ready. So what I'm asking is if we can get a consensus to tell Marlon that we want his firm to start pursuing the dredging permit. Like to, you know, to supplement this and
Like
connect the dots.
immediately.
And I don't know if
And
we can,
probably some raw water storage.
Yeah, a year
At the same time, because the raw water storage is good.
Yeah, I moved to direct Civil West, work with the city manager, or direct the city manager to work with Civil West,
pursue the,
Hubbard Street.
Hubbard Creek dredging permit
Second that.
as soon as possible.
What about the raw water?
Can we add the raw water account to that too? 'Cause like
Yes,
Tim had
there's
said, it
two
would be good
items.
to have
Let's
both
do raw
of them.
water.
I guess
Yeah.
it would be to.
Can I ask a
Wait,
question
wait.
about that? Because
that would be-
the dredging permit and all that stuff is not construction. The raw water impound or the raw water structure, isn't that construction? I mean, aren't they
Not
kind
all
of two
of it.
different things?
They were
It has to actually be designed.
And
So there's a design phase that has to prepare documents, that has to go for review. Anytime you have a reservoir or treatment or pump station, it has to go formal design documents, they get reviewed. So what we'd be doing right now is the design,
Uh-huh.
and then you would have shovel-ready projects, and the schedules that I presented to Jessica on both sides, time around having design documents ready to go when you hear back on the brick.
Right, real quick.
So we'd be getting,
If we don't get the brick money, then we're on the hook though for Civil West and all the other stuff.
You're either way, you go, yes.
Well, no, if we get the brick grant, it goes in with the brick grant money.
Well, it goes in as a match.
Okay.
Gotcha. So,
But
so
what I'm
we have a
asking, though,
motion and a
if-
second on the table.
but I'm sorry, I still don't understand. You're talking about design work, but the dredging permit is not design work. That to me seems like that's a permitting thing. And that's like a thing that is, person hours to make that happen. It's no construction or whatever. So it seems like it's two different little
No,
That's
things.
what I,
because
no, but that's what
the-
I'm trying to clarify is
Yeah.
Counselor Webb, your motion was to direct staff to have Civil West pursue the dredging permit. That's a whole singular thing. That's something we wanted to happen for a year.
And I seconded that.
Right. Okay, and if we want to make another motion about the impound, but that's something we can talk about next month too. Like, we need to get going on this, so if there's any
Just have to get
discussion.
started.
Let's do the
Yeah.
dredging now and then we're going to schedule this priority session and I think maybe.
Well, after we vote, you
We're
can
gonna
make
want
whatever motion you want
Yeah.
after that, but I just want to clarify that this is number one.
My motion was to direct staff to work with Civil West to secure the permit for the dredge Hubbard Creek and Mountain.
Period. Nothing tied in with anything else. Okay.
Like right now, yesterday.
Okay, so that's the motion on the table. Any more discussion on that? Great.
Greg, yes.
Ann?
And yes.
Webb? Kim?
And yes.
And Gary?
Gary, yes.
All right. No, and this is good. It's like, we need any time that we can spend, Jessica, is.
And then on the meters, are we clear on the meters that we're proceeding?
Yeah, he's calling. Yeah, we don't need, I mean, yes,
Okay.
he's gonna come back with the, yeah. And that's one thing we can streamline too, is I can tell him, or you can come to me and say, hey, why don't we get this proposal for next month? Or, and as we're putting stuff on the agenda, we'll build it up a little bit better before we do. All right. So goal setting and planning workshop. When's planning? Okay, so we know we got 3 meetings. We have to meet with the committees as a kind of a steering meeting, which could totally be tied in with the goals, but that is a very separate issue. And then we also need to meet with planning, which we already know will be on the day of the planning meeting, which is the 7th. And what time do they meet?
they meet at 3:30 and then they were gonna have the workshop at 4:30 just because.
Okay, good, okay,
Yeah.
okay, good. So is everybody okay with meeting on the 7th with planning for our workshop to talk about short-term rentals? Good.
Yes.
What time?
4:30.
4:30.
In the chambers?
Yeah, I'll send everyone reminders and everything.
Okay, and then the way my brain works, it seems like we should have our process with the committees meeting before the goal setting, or should we do goal setting before we do the process? Yeah,
I think we should do goal setting. I think that's the top priority.
well, I just mean, will we glean goals from having the meeting with all the committees and seeing how we communicate and then, it just, so it does, so it could tie into the goals. or if there's
Yeah,
any little-
You're right.
And we need to cool the commissions off. I think we need to make.
Right.
I think, so
And like we've been talking about for the last couple of weeks, communication is key and getting that baseline. This is, because it's not, I mean, we need to stick to the process. And part of this miscommunication is because we haven't.
We need to get each individual commissioner to read and understand his role. And those roles are clearly spelled out.
Can we put those in the next part packet at least?
Yes,
Thank you.
We need to get that out of that because there may be just a lot of misunderstanding and, that's the worst.
And
No
I
communication.
heard from Brian too, that they don't have doesn't sound like they have the actual parks plan, which,
Yeah, we have the master plan. We all have that.
okay, just didn't
It's
seem
just,
to realize
it's
that.
just been never been followed
Yeah.
until we took over the commission, a year and a half ago. The stuff of the master plan for Parks Master Plan, nothing's been done
Yeah,
for.
but it sounded like he wasn't aware that the wetland trail was part of Parks deal.
Yeah. Once again, history, we're moving forward. That's why we're having the goal setting. That's why.
Yourself on.
Yeah.
The rules, your role, all those things before you can argue about anything. No, the rules-
And so maybe like tomorrow or next week, we should resend out an email of the rules to all the committees and counselors and all that good stuff. So maybe we should
Maybe we should.
So
do
I
that
thought-
first.
Ann and I were talking earlier today because, because I think sometime in the last 6 months, we talked about having either, Judge Millman or someone come in and do something like that with everyone, kind of just say, this is everyone's role, this is what we should all do, this is how we kind of work effectively. I would love for him to still be able to do that. So maybe we can combine that. That would be awesome, but it's up to you guys. I just thought that would be a good idea.
Brett does have a good point of we're elected officials and we should educate ourselves. It's part of, the job. And when I say we, I mean everyone on every committee.
Well, a lot of the new counselors went up to that training, but I think what Jessica's talking about is if somebody, she and I had talked about this other gentleman, then she said that Judge Millman can do this kind of thing too. If somebody can come, then instead of Jessica telling all the commission members what their roles are, we have somebody who's outside and can help us all.
Well, and maybe, I'm sure CIF has someone like that too, maybe someone with not as much proximity. Or League of Oregon Cities, like.
League of Oregon Cities, actually, they recommended one of the Ann and I had. I just don't, I don't remember the name off the top of my head.
I don't remember either, but we could find it.
Yeah, I have it.
That's a great resource.
Yeah. So maybe we put a placeholder in the committee meetings, we try to reiterate the information and, because we don't want to have in 1 month, so.
What we might consider is direct them, because they work at our pleasure. We direct them to have a meeting about their goals and responsibilities. And then they come to us with that understanding. We meet in the meanwhile, do the same. That way, when we get together, it's not,
Just sort of clarifying.
yeah, that we each know, give everybody a chance to digest what to expect and how to perform.
Yeah.
And then when you do get together, you might not even need to have a meeting.
Right, and maybe we won't, like maybe things. So,
Yeah, but-
okay, so we go back to goal setting session. When's the next meeting? What's the date? 2/16, 2/7. We don't really want to mix that goal setting workshop with any of that.
The 31st,
What's that?
the 31st, or do you guys want it on a Tuesday or a Thursday? Do it on
I
Groundhog
gotta be careful with Tuesdays.
Seems like if we could have the meetings on
Thursday.
a set day, it would be a lot
Something
easier.
about Wednesdays, wasn't it?
I don't know.
No, I mean, if we want to keep them the same, it would be a Thursday.
That would be real easy, because then we can always be aware. I agree with you. That's a good idea.
So when's the last Thursday?
It's the 26th, it's a week from today, and then the next one is the February 2nd.
Oh, I
February 2nd
forgot
is the
about.
first meeting.
Well, I know that next week's gonna be, like, the end of the month is gonna be a tough part to get a consensus. I know Brett might be pretty busy. I don't know if Terry's gonna be back.
Next 30 days.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got surgery on the
31st. Okay, so that kind of makes it, like, are we gonna do this next week?
But hybrid meetings make that a lot easier.
True, yeah, especially for that kind of workshop meeting.
I mean, it wasn't really something we did.
What?
We really need to have, I think part of the problem that we're having here is we have not articulated our priorities. We haven't articulated them to Jessica, people. And so part of what we need to do as a reset is have a priority session.
The worst
So
thing
everybody
for
else get on board.
an administrator or a manager is to not know what is expected.
Yeah.
In other words, clear, concise direction is what they need.
So, I mean, I'm looking at my calendar, the 30th is the more open day for me, but I'm just looking at the calendar.
This one?
Yeah.
Of this
I'm free, whatever.
Yeah, that's good for
There's
me.
other-
Yeah, I just have-
Monday, the 30th, would that work?
Because next week I still have the final stuff with OEM and everything before submissions and stuff, so I just want to make sure I'm open for anything possibly that could happen.
Monday the 30th.
I don't have to be at the meeting. I'll be in Eugene.
Well, even if we have to wait for a little bit, I want to try to have everybody there.
Yeah.
And I mean, we have some goals. I think we're turning it around a little bit. Jessica's doing her notes, so we are keeping track. We just need to reset. So maybe we should. I mean, part of me is thinking like we do it on the 23rd of February or something, like after we get through our planning meeting, after we get through our regular meeting, so we can define what we're looking at for goals and then, but I know I don't want to wait too long either, but
I know we
And
do
then
that.
same day on the 16th? And just make it the workshop before and then have a shorter agenda?
Charlie, I mean.
Sorry.
I'm not for that at
We
all.
talked about short meetings, short things.
I know you had thought, maybe you had mentioned maybe that Steve could help with the priority
Right.
section. And I think after the middle of February, he's going to be gone, so.
Okay.
Why don't we're just gonna
We
spend
can do
an
it
hour trying to decide when to meet. And the thing about it is, for some of us, like Brett, myself, I don't really know till the day of the meeting if I'm gonna make it or not, because I have a business too. So those are the kinds of problems we have. We could spend 2 more hours on this and you still might have 2 people absent or more.
So
So
what?
pick a date, go roll with it. If it works, it works.
Yeah, that's right.
Honestly, I'm just saying, it's the way it always works out. Because Gary's got a surgery, I'm going to see a ortho guy, I might have a surgery coming up. It's all.
So, okay, so the 9th is looking pretty good. It's either gotta be next week or the 9th. Is the 9th okay with you guys?
So we're
Well,
not, well, no, I'm there. So February 9th, right? Okay, so we got one on the 7th and the 9th. And this one is goal.
Yeah, it's the goal setting session.
Okay, which I hope turns into a priority set.
No, that's the whole, yeah, no, it's goals slash priorities.
And a strategic plan, these goal setting things are, they can be kind of, you're headed in that direction, you know what direction you're gonna go, you know, the goal setting can really be confusing to the city manager. I think, you know, if you're doing things right, you're following the plan. Right. That people toil over and spend tens of thousands of dollars on. Any, deviance from that is, I think, in a way, area.
Well, but think of it as we're setting goals to get to those strategic plans, and I totally hear what you're saying, and we need to start with that as the backbone.
Familiarize yourself with the existing plans.
So we don't go in open-ended.
If your goal is something like increased transparency or accountability or something, that's easy, and stuff like that. But I have seen over the years, people will come in with these crazy goals that just are not, it's not feasible. And then how do you look at someone else who's been elected and say that's just ridiculous?
Well, I think our goals
You
have been
don't
like
get to do that. You keep
dredging.
yourself-
And,
Well, we
you know,
did that right now.
we did it. It was great, but we haven't done that. We've been trying to have that conversation. We've never done it until tonight. So we have things like that that are pretty, I think
I
people,
think it's really easy to throw a motion out can't get bogged down with process so much that we're afraid to do things that we're empowered to do. It's not like a state law that says you have to have it as something on the agenda to vote on. So you can only tiptoe, like sometimes you gotta throw yourself out there and just, say what you're thinking and you get things done. That's just how good it feels. It feels great, right? Yes. Oh, that wasn't on the agenda. So I guess my point was to say is that we also should familiarize ourselves with the master plan and all of those things that have been put together by those ahead of us and try to trust their judgment, to some degree. And perhaps you're bolstering their plan with your goals. And I'm telling you, some of the goals that you hear sometimes are, you're all elected like I am. Do what you do.
Well, I hear what you're saying. There's already been a consensus on having it though. And because we've been short-handed and so, just come with your game face on, yeah. Informed. Okay, so that's for the ninth. We got that.
I'm just a little bit concerned the way we left the commissions thing, because there is really angry people out there. And so if we just say, oh, go read your brochure or whatever.
Could we get the chairman of each commission to meet with the mayor and the administrator, put the fire out
And that's what we.
immediately next week? Like, we don't need to have a big plan. Let's just have those. And they will contact the people, put the fire out. Look, call it whatever you want, reset, call it some misunderstandings, call it whatever we gotta do, eat some crow, whatever we gotta do, let's put the fire out. Then move from there. Yeah, so we can all sort of just.
That's a great suggestion.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
Well, that's good.
Cool. New business. And that's every.
Yeah.
Historic commission.
So it's for commission. Yeah, is that what it is?
No, as I said.
So the next one is a new.
Okay,
New business.
new business A, resolution 2023-02, bank signature cards. My only question on that is, I thought that we had to have the full list. Like anytime you made a change to the bank, I thought you had to name everybody. And I'm only saying it because I think I've got time on that.
So I pulled the last few that you guys have done even before me, and they didn't have that. So if that's the case, I will talk with.
No, I could be wrong. I just know that.
And the name.
So I think actually Carolyn might but I will double check. We were talking about that. Oh, Laura.
I would maybe I would entertain a motion to table this.
Move the table.
Second that.
All right, Andy?
Yes.
Greg?
Yes.
Yes.
Brett?
Tim, yes.
Okay. Unanimous. All right, new business B, scope of work for Civil West Engineering.
Well, we handled that, didn't we?
So there are engineers, this is covered under the contract of engineer record. We don't have to go back and open it or anything like that.
That's the. Please say your name with that. I don't think so.
Whole point behind the engineer record, so that the city doesn't have to spend the time and the energy to go out every single time they want to do it. Yeah.
Thank you.
But we will reconsider it when your contract expires, which is when?
I'll have to pull it and I'll let you know for sure. Yeah.
Now, did we actually make you the engineers of record?
Last year sometime we did. Yeah.
It was Dyer, correct?
Yeah.
And the reason that we split off from Dyer originally was because of Pacific Gales using Dyer as an engineer as well.
I don't think they ever did, but I think the last I heard, we still had two engineers.
Most communities nowadays are going with masters, which is like what you guys currently have.
Is that a list?
So you have, we're an engineer record, you also have the option to potentially utilize Dyer. If you
No, I remember, I,
They wanted to use it, and they didn't get to use it. The golf course did.
is that what it was?
I believe that's the way.
I just remember that was an issue, and I'm trying to get caught up here. And figure out why.
But we have 2 engineers of record currently, unless things have changed.
No, because we used, actually Civil West when we did the state of emergency last year.
Well, yeah,
They
the
can
same,
because they were-
it was still on the.
And they still are.
Yeah.
they still
Anyway.
are.
So do we need to approve that scope of work?
Oh, it doesn't matter, I don't know. Here, I just-
Mayor, do we have to approve that,
Before we can discuss this, right?
approve the scope of work?
We should.
We're gonna go, we need a motion?
We would need, I mean, I would move to, so that we. so-
I'll move to approve the scope of work for Civil West Engineering Services as part of the BRIC grant application submission.
Second.
We need to look at this with a fine tooth comb, because I think this is one of those times that we are authorizing these phases of these projects. So really look at the 1 through 11.
This is the litmus. This is where we're putting forward, we're gonna be spending $750,000 of our citizens' taxpayer money. And so this is where I would actually really like to understand, when are we gonna get this for the raw water part too? I don't quite understand how this is all gonna come together and how much money we are gonna be spending on planning to get the shovel-ready projects before we get anything going.
I can get you a scope of work on the raw water, as long as my understanding is correct, which is dredging and then raw water storage. Now, what I'll do is to give you, there's 2 different raw water storage. One revolves around the actual reservoir tank. The other one is all of the improvements around the Hubbard Creek facility. So in that scope next week, I'll send it to you. You guys will have it for review on that. That will include that. You guys have authorized me to move forward with the dredging permit under our EOR contract. So we're gonna go ahead and move forward on that. So next week, I'll get to Jessica that scope of work. And it's gonna be based off of the BRIC grant and the master planning and those costs that are there. So you guys have already see it, but it'll be detailed out for you. So you'll see what's going to be done and what's going to be prepared. And you'll see the 2 different options. You guys can then select. You want me to focus on all of the raw water improvements around Hubbard Creek impound? Or would you rather have me do the raw water freestanding storage tank? Which is your focus? Because both of them will get you access to more raw water.
How about a raw water storage tank at the impound, so it doesn't have very far to travel to get into the tank? And maybe we can do a little sediment mitigation from the impound to the tank and then pump out of the tank to the.
Question if there's a site up there next to that.
That's fine.
Just put it right in the middle of the
I heard that.
Question though of trying to understand, so we're gonna be spending $750,000 on this, and then like next month, there may be another 200,000, or maybe it's 100,000, I don't know. So it'll be up to close to, getting up to close to $1 million, it's gonna all be for, and I'm not saying no to this, I'm just saying, trying to understand, we're gonna be spending like close to $1 million for getting things mostly into the shovel-ready position and not getting anything to happen.
Without it, you don't go nowhere.
No, I get
You
it.
don't get funding, but so they go hand in hand.
Yeah.
And it's a catch-22, it is what it is.
We can revisit this list. Thoroughly understanding the expenses is good, but like, you have to have a shovel-ready project.
Well, and what I'll put out there, one of the things that,
I mean, realistically, I don't see the city being able to afford. So we're gonna be going after grants forever. I think that we should probably hire a grant writer.
We have
That
money to the side.
That's a whole nother subject. But I think it's a lot of money. It's a lot of money. Well,
Well, and one thing that I'll put out there, it is a lot of money. You guys still direct me as your engineer. You authorize me to work on this. We send out monthly invoices and show where we're at. We have coordination meetings. If at any point in time, you go, like, you know what? If John identified these as the primary project, that one's no longer, we're not concerned about that one. Or we had to do an emergency repair, so that one's no longer there. You notify us that we can change our focus and exclude that if it needs to be excluded. So we're your engineer, we're part of your team. Our goal is to work with you and make sure you get what you want. I don't want to just, boom, here you go, and ignore you and then show up with the plan set and then go, well, no, we actually have this concern. So we try to be engaged and work through the whole process with you. The projects listed are all of the priority one projects, and that was under direction of Jessica and John. And that's what you see in front of you. If you authorize us to do that, we'll commence work. If in 2 months you decide you want to shift gears, all you have to do is and we have that ability to do what we need to do to make sure that we're aligned. We're not gonna, this isn't chiseled in stone, but it gives us a direction. We now know generally this is where we want you to go. And next week, I'll send you the one based on our discussions today for the raw one. And that gives me my marching orders and my direction to go, and then we work through that process.
Thank you.
What the vote here does is it gives them the paycheck. I mean, and I think that sort of illustrates where we were before, was everything's, you know, we're the ones that say, yes, we will pay you, or yes, we will be liable for that grant, that, you know.
We don't move forward without it.
It's the important part.
It is, it's super important, but we don't move forward without it. It's just like purchasing the watershed, the Wilson property. We don't protect our water supply without purchasing that property. So this is a part of the puzzle, just like that was a part of the puzzle. It's.
And that's a big piece of why we want to work with the best support we have, because we are, you know.
You need to, because that's actually identifying one of the improvements that should be done in your house. So I, by no means am saying that to go a different direction.
Yeah, because I guess you can't have a good secondary source unless you have a primary source.
It was bad. But that was because of the hydraulic leaks. And when you use vegetable oil.
Right.
There's another discussion.
I was wondering.
Yeah, it's really that part of it. Then you start thinking, oh, I gotta pay the fabricator, and all that stuff. For the student things.
That's equipment.
From my understanding, this is kind of.
Maybe that's something we ought to start.
Now I'm thinking about the generator trailer sitting on top of that fire equipment.
You guys, we have a motion. Second.
The
Go forward.
Any other questions on that before we call? All right, Gary,
Gary, yes.
Brett, Ann, Tim, and Greg.
Greg, yes.
All right, thank you, Marlon. Hey, and I thank you, Ann, for thanking everyone right off the bat.
Yeah.
I always get heated about numbers and stuff. I should have done that. Thank you, Marlon. It's nice to meet you. Thank you, Jessica, very much. Thank you, Ann, very much. Thank you, John, even though you're not here.
Marlon, thank you.
You all know that you guys
For
are.
putting us at ease and, you know, helping us work through this. It's not that, by no means do we not want to get somewhere with this. It's just, we want to make sure we're doing things right.
We need to get on the right same page, and we're there.
Thank you.
And that's something that I think historically we haven't had a lot of communication. We've definitely over the past 6 months to a year increased that, and I look forward to continuing to work with you guys, and I'm excited. So, and like I said before, questions come up, let Jessica know. You guys can track me down. I'm always available. Ask comments, questions, concerns. I'm here for you as a resource.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mark.
We're going to start to drive back.
Yes.
Okay. You guys gotta get home before McDonald's closes, right?
At least I gave her a meeting with a tour of the kitchen.
Yeah.
It'd be,
Nice to meet you both.
Good to meet you. Thank
Thank
you.
you so much. So thank you. And everyone, all volunteers.
Yeah.
It's like people come in and volunteer, which is awesome. That was a lot of fun.
I have a question about that. So
Yeah.
do we get to apply that towards our match?
As chair, yeah,
And so us as volunteers, at what it used to be $17.50, it's gotta be up to $25 now since you can make that at McDonald's.
it's.
Whatever it is per person, per hour that we put into this multiple.
We just put 20 hours.
Yeah, sure.
You can write out Shayla. You can write out Shayla.
Well, 3, if we get out in the next 15 minutes.
Okay. All right. So, dog
Circle K
training.
is gonna be busy after this.
So on the 18th,
What are you looking for on this, Mr. Mayor? Are you looking for a motion to send it to Parks?
well, I mean, after the conversations we've had earlier, this kind of has the same.
I move to send this to Parks.
Well, hold on. I know from the Parks standpoint, we have to approve it here. I'd rather her talk, I think that's why it's at this level here talking to us, is because we want to make sure that we're just going to send it back to us in a sense at Parks. Because we're going to approve it in the sense of, let's say we do approve it. We have to make the decision. And
But you'll give us recommendations on how to move forward, correct?
this is the recommendations that we're going to give the Parks,
And
from
that-
2 million to 3 million.
But, wait, what?
It says that, do they have to have that?
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I was looking at the wrong, my apologies, I was looking at the community building for dog training,
That is,
Yeah.
yeah,
and then
they
I
just need to
guess,
have their own insurance.
so the question is, did you review this
The
already?
Parks has it. What I'm saying is, I know from the sake of Parks Rec, we're gonna approve anything community minded sense. We're gonna approve it to come to this level. If if this person who has the dog training has this insurance program or the insurance premiums, it's okay. You know what I mean?
This was a request from a citizen to go on the agenda. And so this is one of the things that the mayor had approved to go on the agenda.
That's it.
That's all I
And it
know.
comes first, you know.
This is part of our problem right here, though, is how Parks is giving us recommendations. Like, maybe you guys should be doing a little more of the footwork and coming to us with, it's going to cost this much for insurance. Like, this is how it needs to happen. These are the parameters.
We didn't know that
rather than-
because CIS just gave us all that information.
No, I just mean in general. I'm not talking about any specific instance. I'm just saying that when anyone comes to us with a recommendation, it should be more than, we think it's a good idea.
Well, the
I'm not
whole,
knocking on anybody. I'm just saying that's gonna save everybody time.
that's what it's for. That's what the commission's
Right,
for.
and
They are to come with,
Right,
you say
we have-
yes.
We have a fresh class with a lot of committees and we have fresh employees, and so that's where we're trying to get.
So would you rather this go to be a Parks agenda then?
Because of the process.
It probably
you know,
should go to
it's-
Parks
it's-
first, and then you make a recommendation to us based on your research, and then, of course, Jessica does her research, but there again, is this a for-profit business asking you to use the building for free?
It's
No.
actually, it's not the business that's actually asking to use the building. A person, a resident has come to us and said that she has dogs, that she's doing dog training outside of town. And this business that she uses is looking for an additional facility to do it in North County.
But they're gonna charge.
They're gonna charge.
They're gonna be a
for.
But it's not gonna be a full-time thing. It'd be like just renting it out for like a day, a week or something like
It's still a full-time, I mean,
that.
it's.
Well, but that's
still-
why they would have to have their own insurance.
Yeah, but I mean, what about, how do we handle the
Well,
rental of the building?
Time out. Yes.
I think that I'm sorry, I was raising my hand, and we do have, I believe, as part of our rules that we can, and maybe this is something we need to think about forward, because we are all talking around instead of taking turns to talk. We talked earlier about, I think, coming up with some policies for this building. And so what we need is like just clear policies. If you're a commercial entity, this is what we need. Your rental is going to be this, that, and the other. If you're a community organization, it's either no rent or it's a cheap rent or whatever we want to do. And you need to have this insurance and you need to keep it clean. If you're going to have your dogs in there, you know, it doesn't matter. If you have kids, if you have dogs, if you have whatever, you have to clean it up at the end. Boom, boom, boom.
So without policy, we can't make a decision.
Right, well, that's what, so I would say what we need to do is have either Jessica, if she's willing, or Parks, but I think it makes sense for Jessica to do it because she's having this conversation, sorry to put something on your plate, Jessica, with Rotary to say, well, what is a recommended policy that can work for us? Is, you know, maybe we're gonna have it listed on the website. Here's what you have to do. Come to City Hall, pay this, get the key, have it all, and then we don't have to do this every single time.
Well,
Shayla has something.
Yeah.
we're overthinking. We have a fee schedule, we have a fee schedule right here that we can go to. Until that doesn't work, and staff comes to us and says, hey, we need to adjust this a little bit.
Yes, you did.
But I mean, we're talking about something that's already done. And if it's egregious or wrong, then
Well, I think that having animals inside of a building is a little bit different than, I'm not saying yes or no, but there are issues with animals that,
I think that it, you know, she's either gonna be able to get the insurance or not get the insurance, and she's going to have to express to her insurance provider what it is she's doing. And it could be a situation in which the insurance is not available to her because of what it is she's doing.
but as long as she's insured, I mean, but we only have one.
I suppose that's up to this board if they want to determine whether or not to allow animals in the
It
building.
seems uncommon to me. I can't.
Well, it's food
I've
service.
done it myself.
There's
Gone to
food served there,
concerts.
so I don't know. Some people overlook that at restaurants, but I personally,
I mean,
I don't like to go to a restaurant, somebody has their dog, and I'm weird.
No,
I like those.
you might not be weird. I love dogs. I think they're great. I don't want to sit next to one while I eat though. I mean, anyway, that's my reference was my comment was in reference to it being food. You know, it's a restaurant and we're going to bring animals into it.
I'm thinking it's going to be not in the Legion Hall part, but it's going to be in the community building. And if they're just going to go in for a couple of hours, 3 times,
Yeah, well, I guess we don't know that, what their intentions are, but that's the thing about the policy part of it is you can make a rough policy, but there's always you can't make a rule for every instance that may come in. So there's always going to be this, and that's why we have commissions, to look at these things and make recommendations. I don't know, that'd be a tough one. I hate to be on the park so off for that one because it's tough. I mean, everybody loves dogs. Anyway. So I moved to send it to court.
I second.
Now we can talk about it. I don't know if it's the right thing to do.
if it goes to Parks, then, I mean, I still don't understand. Do we already have this policy that I suggested? Yeah, do we already have that and it's just nobody knows about it?
We have policy.
We do have policy for
Actually,
races.
the policy
covers pets.
There is not one that covers pets.
We need to just get a pet card, I think. Because the next person might come and say they want to train horses. You guys think I'm kidding? It's 2023. I mean, anything can happen.
Okay, so but the question we're asking Parks then is specifically the animal question? That's what we're asking?
I guess the joy of having a commission is that their direction, you direct them to look at these oddities and specifics, and then they make a recommendation and can explain why.
Because other places are doing it or.
Whatever it is.
Yeah.
I don't even know if these people are gonna be willing to consider it, but, anyway, okay.
Who's the parks?
Yeah.
We want them to.
Yeah. Well, let's vote and see if Parks will do it.
Well, I mean, maybe a real simple to that.
They say a dog bite, in a lawsuit, a dog bite starts at $30,000 goes up. So that's why you have insurance.
Their insurance, right?
Well,
So you
their
guys may look at it and say, you gotta increase the insurance to this much or whatever it is.
Well,
I don't know.
that's why she got CIS to give us that so that we got it right.
Right, I wonder, sometimes I wonder about the understanding, I hope everybody does their homework on what their roles and responsibilities are in some of these commissions. I'm not sure that they're completely understood. I mean, that's what a commission is for, is to do the work that the council doesn't have time to do. And that is not to say that it's unimportant or anything like that, but those are the details that we entrust these members of the community to come, to consider. So I think it's a great asset to the council to have good, trustworthy commissioners. And I think we have them. I think we do.
So we could probably do one or two things here. Since we're sending it back to parks, it sounds like. We haven't voted on
But
yet,
has it
but
been?
it looks like.
No, it has not been.
We could, since we're sitting here right now, we all thought about the dog in the building. Do we want to make a recommendation whether we will want them in the building for parks before they even go through this, or do we want it to come back to us and do it then?
Well, I would think that the parks would go, they would contact other communities and see what other communities are doing. And then they would bring us a recommendation based on their research. I think that's just what I would imagine.
Did we get a second on that?
Yes, I second it.
Any other discussion? Is that any parts?
No.
I don't know, it doesn't seem like it should be controversial, is it not, is it?
Okay.
All right, great.
Greg, yes.
Yes,
We will work on that in the next meeting on the second.
Okay, so we got our continuing action items, Rotary Club website, roof quotes, wetland walkway, and short-term rentals.
Hold on.
Business
New business.
And that is I would move to direct the administrator to write a letter signed by the mayor that we need clarification on, we need the numbers. We need, these are very, it's not just like we're being jerks. We need to know where we're at, what's going. So that's my motion is to direct staff to write a letter. Yeah.
I'll second that.
We don't want to send daggers on there that the county, we work with the county, they work with us, but we want them to know firmly that we need the numbers. How are we supposed to account if we don't have them?
Well, and I had reached out to him, I reached out to Commissioner Boyce, I reached out to the county director down there, I reached out to a bunch of people since I started this in April. So, very little besides, oh yes, we forgot, we did not send you a payment in September, here you go.
The thing about this person is that he or she is an elected, he has no boss. That's the problem with it.
Yes. Yes, all three of them are still there.
Who?
Commissioner Boyce and Connor.
No, we don't want to. We
No,
want to.
Barnes is the.
That's who we're dealing with. right
That's
now.
what we're dealing with?
We don't want to go up and above this, or anything
We
right
wanna
now.
talk
We
to
just want to
Steve,
deal with him.
you know.
Sounds like we already did.
Yeah.
No, yeah, well, no one's above him.
No, he's elected.
He's an elected official. There is no above him, the people.
No, I mean, the one.
Well, because we talked to him, he actually had heard the struggle, he was here at Commissioner meeting, so he and I talked.
See, that's part of the change for me too, like, there's a lot of communication for people, commissioners and other higher ups that I don't hear about or know about until somebody in the street is like, oh, why is so-and-so talking to the commissioner? It's kind of a bummer.
Oh, yeah.
I did.
No, he had asked me after, during one of our meetings, actually, I think he was sitting there, he was sitting right there. We were talking about it.
Okay, so we have a first and second on that, right?
Greg, yes.
And
Right, yes.
Gary?
yes.
Tim, yes.
yes. All right. Is there any continuing action items to add that we came up with?
The scope work for Hubbard and all that, for those. all that.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's pretty much called out in this brick room.
It is.
we'll feel that out.
Right.
Gotcha. Okay, and we set our 3 meetings, or 2 meetings.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
We are having our own meeting and then.
Yeah. And then, when it's the hearing on next.
Okay.
And that is,
Look at that.
you're going to, you guys are going to meet with the commission heads next week immediately as soon as possible, like tomorrow.
We got all the time. I know, I'm just joking. You guys, it's an hour past my bedtime.
So we just got to nail that down, make that happen. But we got good people, we got great
Get over
volunteers,
it,
we
you
got.
got better.
We really need to. I didn't do a very good job of controlling the meeting today as far as trying to shut down side conversations. So I will try to do a better
I
job.
think we got a lot accomplished, so we talked about a lot of stuff. It's hard to ball it up for a month and not talk about all
Well,
this
I know,
stuff.
but like, that's why we gotta get back to the process.
I know.
If you look at our council rules, they are just kind of the guideline. They're
I understand.
strict adherence.
I'm coming from the standpoint of I had Ann politely raising her hand throughout the meeting, and I couldn't get to a spot where I could call on her. is what
I
I'm
used to raise my hand, and by the way, I used to raise my hand at meetings where I would hold my hand up for like a week. And finally, I did about probably 2 or 3 years ago, I said, hi, I'm not raising my hand anymore. I don't disagree with you. I just, maybe we can come to a better agreement on, if we go around in one order on one topic, and another order on another topic. And maybe that hourglass needs to be used right there. I know Pat was a stickler when he first became mayor on the hourglass. Because really, if you can't say it by the time it's done there, maybe we're just oversaying it.
It's the departmental reports, I swear, I mean, we got everything else done, like twice as fast as we did the
We
liaison.
spent an hour on departmental.
Well, John's watching right there. He looks up real quick.
See, and that's, and I hear what you're saying about not having an opportunity to talk about this.
And you're gonna have a lot of workshops in order to do what the Robert's rules of 3 minutes around, and one, you get to say one thing.
Well, it used to be it's twice around is the way, one thing Mayor Albert did do right. He let us go around twice. And a lot of times on the second time, some people had something to say and sometimes they didn't. Oftentimes it was in response to what another counselor said. They might want to throw a little bit more in.
And the way that's gonna work is with the rest of the stuff we've been talking about. Getting a website, getting the information, getting it out to the counselors on time, so that we have the time to, because a lot of times when it's last minute, you don't have time to assimilate the information, and you are like, oh, that caught me on that last page, I'm gonna find it right now, in the motion. So, but either way, it's. Yeah.
I like to hear I like to hear what people have to say. I mean,
I think it's better to say, I don't like the long meetings, but I really appreciate hearing people rather than I feel like if it's Robert's rules and nobody can say anything other than 2 minutes or 3 minutes, we would lose a lot.
Well, what you do is you pressure people into breaking or talking to more than two, The only way to be ready to vote this quick is if you've already talked to 2 or 3 guys that you trust and these are sharp. You don't want to do that.
I think I might have misphrased my
But whatever.
statement. Because of our Zoom hybrid meeting capabilities, we do have to be careful of the side conversations because it kills it for everyone trying to listen in. I did, yeah, so once we get but that is one reason to remember that. I just pulled that out of my hat. I said that when you guys started contradicting. but-
The talking stick. Maybe biscuits if we're gonna have 3 or 4.
No, and also the answer to that is.
You gotta make a tough decision, right?
Yeah.
It's super important. Yes, absolutely.
But each meeting seems like it's got some.
It's not important. It's coming here for important stuff.
They do, but there's times when we spin off and we get going on stuff. We get a little bit crazy. But I think we like it.
Well, we got 2 years to change that. I know, I really like. Okay, so we are on to considerations, citizen considerations. Please come right up.
Thank you, Renee.
Hi, Rolly.
No, he's smart. He watches it on the hybrid and he's like, oh, they're getting into new business, so I can leave.
You're good.
Is that working?
It's on.
It's not what you're thinking. I have an observation. I listen to your meetings most times, and nobody's really, just 3 or 4 of you address the microphones. The rest don't. I can hardly hear you at all. The minutes are bound to be awful. I have a suggestion. You get one of these things, stick it in the floor. When you sit in the audience, you hear every word that's said. So this one as well. This is what you need, just a simple digital recorder on the tripod. It's equidistant from everybody. You can damn near throw these away if you want, because that's the signal that you can send out to them. They will hear everybody.
Is the microphone too? I'm sorry.
Yeah, I use it actually, so I record myself for duets. Well, if you can't do the job there, you will have a copy of the minutes, a copy you can put online if you don't get to, and it will be clear. Simple. The observation was, it sets off really bad, and as you get more excited, it gets better and clearer. Somewhere in the middle of the meeting, though, there's 3 or 4 at once. You've got to do something about that. You really have. It's not like that. You're fantastic people, you're doing a good job, but please, one at a time. That's it. I'm not even going to mention, you know what.
Thank you, Rolly.
I didn't say. Oh, by the way, Rome was 61190.
Oh, I'm like, what?
Oh, thank you. That's kind of too dark. All right.
Is there anyone online? No, I don't see it.
Anyone online? Staff?
No.
Counselor? Look. Okay.
Wait, I have something.
Go ahead.
Or with my little note here. Well, I wanted to just first say, I'm not going to find my note, that I'm really excited to be working with you all in this new year and to become an effective council. And I'm looking forward to working with you all, and I hope we can do that. And thank you for electing me council president. I hope I can, I know, I hope that was not, I kind of had a little bit of a setup feeling, especially since several of you have already served in this role. But I will do my best.
Sure.
And will appreciate your support. The only other thing I wanted to answer with considerations is I did get a letter today from the group that has been raising money about for the community building. I don't know if any of you got this. Everybody who had donated money got a letter that said, basically, because the city doesn't have capacity, we're kind of putting our project on hiatus right now. I would just wanted to say I'm concerned about this because a lot of people, including people at Rotary, raised $140,000. And I do worry we're going to lose it and lose their support because we don't have the capacity to help make that block grant happen. So down the pike, I would really like to figure out a way to have capacity to do more than only water, even though that's the most important thing. And I really appreciate we're doing that.
You guys okay to put that on the next agenda because it's another thing that's been languishing?
And I thought it could help us with that grant, that people.
It was more, but we still have money, we have money set aside in our budget for.
Yeah, that's why we don't need to talk about it right now. It's gonna be on the agenda.
Okay.
I guess I didn't.
I just, since I got the letter, and it's very polite and respectful about the city's need for water, because at various times in the past, I heard these people were also really unhappy, but it's a respectful letter, but I think it's worth, it gets to this thing of we've got fabulous volunteers in our community, and I would love to get to the point where we can help them feel inspired to do great things instead of like shutting them down, and that we always are, and we have to do it right and everything, but there's people who have money, they want to help make our community better. We should figure out how to make it happen, I think.
I agree, thank you.
All right, Mayor, one quick thing. We've had communication problems and we have a lot of room for improvement. But I get the feeling sometimes that even our own council feels like we're not getting stuff done. I don't feel that way. I feel like we have some humps, but we've had a lot of stuff against us. We've been shorthanded and we're only gonna get better. So new pace, new thing, looking forward. All of us need to try to not worry about why this is wrong or what went wrong or who is the reason that it went wrong. We're still on the same problem. Okay? Super excited about the council and how we're moving forward and how you guys are going to keep me honest on this and put this stuff on. So thank you all. I'm happy about the new council. Meeting is adjourned at 7:15. 9.